Chapter 337. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. The expert had been attracted by the sound of the flute and had used his qigong to arrive behind the fake mountain where Xiao Lulang was standing. He wore a mask, revealing only a pair of eyes that were colder and more bloodthirsty than an ordinary assassin's. He landed steadily in front of Xiao Lulang and sized up Xiao Lulang. When Xiao Lulang was young, he had seen the Princess of Xinyang use the flute to summon the previous emperor's loyalists. He had played the same song. There was no one in this area, and his song was not loud. Only the loyalists of the previous emperor could hear it. At first, he was a little worried that he had played the wrong song, but it seemed that he was right. However, why was he alone? Were the others not in the imperial palace? In his impression, the loyalists of the previous emperor wore masks like this and had the same terrifying murderous aura. They would not indiscriminately kill people outside of their mission, especially people who did not know martial arts, unless they were obstructed in the middle of their mission. Xiao Lulang understood that as long as he did not make any provocative moves, he would not make a move against him. His eyes were filled with confusion and curiosity. Xiao Lulang generously allowed him to size him up. After a moment, as if to verify something, Xiao Lulang said to him, "Could I trouble you to help me pick a leaf from the top of my head?" But that person left without even looking back. Xiao Lulang sighed. He had originally thought that if he could play the song to summon the other person, he might be able to make the other person listen to his orders. It seemed that he had thought too much. The Princess of Xinyang had been able to control the loyalists of the previous emperor not because of this song, but because she was the new master that the previous emperor had passed down to them. When this loyalist heard the song, he probably thought that his original master was summoning him. But when he rushed over and found that he was not the previous emperor, nor was he the emperor, he turned and left. Well, he could only stall for so much time. Gu Jiao dragged the person into the small dark room near the supreme liquid pool. Just as she threw the person in, before she could use her snowflake-like violent little fists, a terrifying and familiar aura approached. "Ah! You're back so soon." She hadn't even started yet. Nyahilu Gu Jiao scratched her head frantically, lifted the sack, and kicked it into the supreme liquid pool. Then, she ran away, chirping. The court ladies in the imperial garden finally realized that concubine Jing was missing. They looked around and even alerted the emperor in the end. By the time the emperor rushed over from the imperial study, Grand Concubine Jing had already been fished out of the water by the loyalist and brought back to Pure Flower's palace. "Mother!" The emperor rushed to Pure Flower's palace in a hurry and went straight to Grand Concubine Jing's bedchambers, but Kai Mama stopped him outside. "Your Majesty, please wait a moment. Imperial Concubine Dowager is changing clothes." The emperor asked anxiously, "What happened? Why did Mother suddenly disappear?" Kai Mama said in a sad and panicked voice, This servant isn't too sure. Let's wait until we ask Imperial Concubine Dowager." The emperor coldly said, "Why aren't you sure? Aren't you always serving Mother Consort?" Mama Kai said in an aggrieved manner, "This servant was originally serving the Imperial Concubine Dowager, but a palace maid accidentally scolded her hand. The imperial concubine was kind and allowed this servant to bring the palace maid back to Pure Flower's palace to apply medicine. How could this servant have expected that imperial concubine dowager would fall into the water while this servant was gone? Fall into the water? The emperor frowned. Grand concubine Jing's pained cries could be heard from inside. Kai Mama quickly said, "Imperial concubine dowager is completely drenched. This servant will go in to serve Imperial Concubine Dowager first. This servant will take her leave." Kai Mama turned and entered Grand Concubine Jing's bedchambers. Not long later, the imperial physician also arrived. He was about to bow to the emperor when the emperor waved his hand impatiently. "Why aren't you going in yet?" The imperial physician shuddered in fright and hurriedly went in with his medical kit. The emperor anxiously waited outside the bedchambers for a full hour before Grand Concubine Jing finished packing. "Your Majesty." Kai Mama walked out with red eyes and invited the emperor in. The emperor quickly walked to the bed and sat down. His heart ached when he saw Grand Concubine Jing sitting at the head of the bed. Her face was pale, her nose was bruised, and her head was wrapped in a large bandage. He coldly looked at Kai Mama. "Didn't you say that she only fell into the water? How did she get injured? And such serious injuries at that. How could this be all of his injuries?" This was just the tip of the iceberg. Although Gu Jiao hadn't been able to make a move in time, Grand Concubine Jing's head had hit the stairs 7 or 8 times and her butt had been rubbed against the limestone floor over 100 times. Her gunny sack had been worn through and her pants had holes in them. It was a bloody mess. Her knees had been hit 3 times, her arms had been hit 5 times, and her waist had been hit dozens of times. For her to suffer like this at her age, she would have died long ago if it weren't for her martial arts. But even with martial arts, her injuries were still very serious. She couldn't move at all, and her entire body would hurt if she did. Kai Mama dropped to her knees and choked out, I also thought that she only fell into the water." Grand Concubine Jing weakly said, "Your Majesty, this has nothing to do with Kai Mama. Please don't take your anger out on her. She wasn't pretending to be weak now. She was so weak that she could collapse at any moment." "You may all leave," Grand Concubine Jing said to Kai Mama and the servants in the bedchambers. Kai Mama and the others looked at the emperor nervously, fearing that he would punish them. The emperor waved his hand coldly, and everyone retreated as if relieved of a heavy burden. "What's wrong with the servants this time?" The emperor gritted his teeth and murmured. Grand Concubine Jing raised her arm that was about to break from the pain and gently placed it on the back of the emperor's hand. She shook her head. "It's not their fault. The opponent was too strong." The emperor asked, "Where are the men of sacrifice and shadow gods I left for you?" Grand Concubine Jing replied, "The men of sacrifice were lured away, and the shadow gods were knocked out. Those were the palace's experts." The emperor gasped. Who could be so powerful? Grand Concubine Jing shook her head. "I'm not sure. I felt that something was off at the time, but I was injured before I could see the other party's face." She was embarrassed to say that she had been put in a gunny sack. She couldn't afford to lose face like this. "That person took me near the supreme liquid pond. If the men of sacrifice hadn't come back in time and scared that person away, I might have died. That person even knew to throw me into the water, forcing the men of sacrifice to save me. That way, he could have escaped without a trace. So vicious, so vicious." The emperor clenched his fists and trembled with anger. Grand Concubine Jing lowered her head and withdrew her hand with a bitter smile. "Have I caused trouble for your Majesty? If I hadn't suddenly returned to the palace, none of this would have happened for no reason." The emperor held her hand tightly. "Don't say that, Mother. It was our intention for you to return to the palace. Someone couldn't bear to see you return and plotted twice in one day, almost taking Mother's life. Don't worry, Mother, we will definitely ferret out the mastermind. Even if we have to risk our lives, we will bring them to justice. We will seek justice for Mother." He was just short of mentioning Empress Dowager Zhuang by name. Grand Concubine Jing covered her mouth with her handkerchief and coughed sadly. "Mother." The emperor looked coldly at the imperial physician kneeling on the ground. "How is Mother's body?" The imperial physician replied in fear and trepidation, "In reply to your Majesty, esteemed imperial concubine was severely injured and frightened by falling into the water. I'm afraid she will need to rest for a while before she can recover." The emperor shouted, "Then what are you still doing here? Why aren't you brewing the medicine for Imperial Mother?" Yes. The imperial physician left in a cold sweat. "Your Majesty! Your Majesty!" Eunuch Wei walked in with small steps. "What is it?" the emperor asked. Eunuch Wei said, "This servant found the unconscious Xiao Xiuzhua near the supreme liquid pond." "Him." The emperor went to the small garden in Pure Flower's palace. Eunuch Wei called for the imperial physician, who performed acupuncture on Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang slowly woke up and opened his heavy eyelids. He asked, "Where is this?" Eunuch Wei hurriedly said, "This is Pure Flower's palace." Xiao Xiuzhua, you fainted in the supreme liquid pond just now. Why did you faint? Xiao Lulang was at a loss. I think I saw a suspicious person just now. She looked like Jiao Jiao. I called out to her and she knocked me out. What? The little divine doctor knocked you out? Eunuch Wei looked at the emperor in astonishment. He could also see the shock in the emperor's eyes. The emperor was someone who had experienced scheming before. He carefully asked about the time and place of Xiao Liulong's accident and quickly connected that person to Grand Concubine Jing's assassin. Xiao Lulang was stunned. Your Majesty, you're saying that Grand Concubine Jing's assassin was Jiao Jiao? How is that possible? His acting skills had improved again. He had only done such a shameless thing once or twice, so how did he become so proficient in it? Did he really have some talent in this area? Eunuch Wei was puzzled. But this servant interrogated the palace servants just now. Aside from her, no one else appeared in the vicinity. Xiao Lulang said seriously, Jiao Jiao didn't enter the palace today. Although she has some skills, she doesn't know Qinggong. She wouldn't have been able to enter without using the main entrance. This was the truth. Gu Jiaojiao truly didn't know any Qinggong. The emperor had experienced it firsthand. On the night of the assassination attempt, Gu Jiaojiao had used all 4 legs to escape with him. The emperor's legs had almost broken from running. If she knew Qinggong, she wouldn't have not used it in a life-and-death situation. This time, Eunuch Wei didn't wait for the emperor's orders. In order to prove the young divine doctor's innocence, he went to the palace gates himself and asked the guard if Gu Jiao had entered the palace. No. The guard replied with absolute certainty. Eunuch Wei asked, Xiao Xiuzhua entered the palace by himself? The guard replied, there was also a young eunuch from Ranshou Palace. This young eunuch didn't arouse Eunuch Wei's suspicions because Empress Dowager Zhuang did often send people to Jadewater Alley to deliver things or bring people from Jadewater Alley into the palace. Eunuch Wei returned to Pure Flower's palace to report. The young divine doctor truly didn't enter the palace today. Xiao Lulang said thoughtfully, could it be, someone is impersonating Jiao Jiao? The emperor gritted his teeth. Did you see her appearance clearly? Xiao Lulang shook his head. I didn't see her clearly. Her back was very similar, her clothes, her hair accessories were all the same, and there was also that small basket on her back. In the imperial palace, there wasn't a single palace maid who would wear green clothes and carry a small basket on her back. This was clearly Gu Jiao's attire. The emperor's gaze turned cold. It seems that someone really is impersonating the young divine doctor. Xiao Lulang suddenly realized. Why didn't she kill this subject to silence him? She probably wanted to use this subject to reveal her identity. Unfortunately, she didn't know that Jiao Jiao didn't know Qinggong and instead exposed herself. This balance was very delicate. Even Eunuch Wei didn't know that Gu Jiao didn't know Qinggong. He thought that since the young divine doctor was so skilled, he would definitely be able to leap onto roofs and vault over walls like the palace's experts. It was because he didn't know that the emperor believed that the culprit didn't know either. It seemed that the culprit had miscalculated something. Since the culprit wanted to frame Gu Jiao, then the mastermind couldn't be Empress Dowager Zhuang. No matter how prejudiced the emperor was against Empress Dowager Zhuang, he couldn't believe that she would frame Gu Jiao. When he was recuperating in Jadewater Alley, he had personally seen how well she treated Gu Jiao. He knew that she cherished Gu Jiao as much as she cherished him. Empress Dowager Zhuang's suspicions were naturally dispelled. But if it wasn't her, then who would be so intolerant of Consort Jing's mother? The emperor coldly muttered to himself. His voice wasn't loud, but Eunuch Wei still heard it. Eunuch Wei cautiously glanced at Xiao Lulang. He thought that this kind of thing shouldn't be said in front of Xiao Xiuzhua, right? He could only pray that Xiao Xiuzhua didn't hear it. Xiao Liulong's expression didn't change at all, as if he really hadn't heard anything. He thought seriously for a moment, then said, "Your Majesty, since that person is framing Jiao Jiao, they must be trying to stir up conflict between Pure Flowers Palace and Ranshou Palace." It wasn't a secret that Gu Jiao was close to Ranshou Palace. If they couldn't prove that the culprit wasn't Gu Jiao, then the fire would definitely burn Empress Dowager Zhuang's head. Xiao Lulang sternly said, "Your Majesty, forgive this subject for speaking bluntly, but someone wants Your Majesty, the Grand Imperial Concubine, and the Empress Dowager to fight among themselves. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. This subject understands that there is an unresolvable conflict between Your Majesty and the Empress Dowager, but Your Majesty must not fall for someone else's scheme in the face of a great enemy." In the past, the emperor wouldn't have listened to these words. However, the evidence today was conclusive, so it was hard for him not to believe it. After Xiao Lulang left the palace, the emperor sat quietly in his study for a long time. It wasn't until the imperial physician came to report to him about Grand Concubine Jing's condition that he got up and went to her bedchambers. "Have you found the culprit?" Grand Concubine Jing asked weakly. The emperor hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he didn't mention that the culprit had pretended to be Gu Jiao and met Xiao Lulang by chance. "There aren't many leads for now. Imperial Mother, please don't worry. We will continue to investigate." Grand Concubine Jing smiled. Amen. Digression. Today was the day that Lulang doted on Jiao Jiao. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111491792. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 338. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online can be found here. Grand Concubine Jing's matter caused such a huge commotion that everyone in the palace knew that she had been ambushed twice in a day. Who do you think did it? In a corner of the palace, a group of palace maids and eunuchs gathered together to secretly discuss Grand Concubine Jing's matter. Who else could it be? Think about it. Who in the palace doesn't want Grand Concubine Jing to come back the most? Could it be the Grand Concubine of Ranshou Palace? Shoo! Lower your voice. Do you want to be beheaded? Don't even mention the name of that person. Keep it in your heart and don't say it even in your dreams. Otherwise, just wait for your head to be chopped off. Hundreds of palace maids and eunuchs have died at that person's hands, if not 1,000. So cruel. The new palace maid trembled in fear. In fact, it wasn't just the palace maids and eunuchs who thought so. Even Empress Dowager Zhuang's niece, noble consort Zhuang, believed that her aunt was responsible for Grand Concubine Jing's successive deaths. Your Majesty, this concubine heard that Grand Concubine Jing was ambushed again. Does Your Majesty already have a suspect in mind? Empress Xiao looked at the emperor in the study of Pure Flowers Palace. Her implication was obvious. It was Empress Dowager Zhuang. Unexpectedly, the emperor denied it. Don't make wild guesses. It wasn't the Empress Dowager. Empress Xiao looked as if she had been struck by lightning as she stared blankly at the emperor. What did His Majesty say? It wasn't the Empress Dowager? Since when did His Majesty speak up for the Empress Dowager? He wanted nothing more than to blame it on Empress Dowager Zhuang. Your Majesty. Empress Xiao began. The emperor cut her off. All right, don't ask about Concubine Jing's matters. We have our own plans. Go back and restrain the palace maids and tell them not to gossip. Empress Xiao replied in disbelief. Yes. Noble consort Zhuang went to Rancho Palace with a smile and walked into Empress Dowager Zhuang's study. She smiled as she walked. Aunt, you're too amazing. How did you do it? He also taught that vixen, grand concubine Jing, a lesson without leaving any evidence behind. I heard that His Majesty did not suspect you at all. There were a few eunuchs in the Palace of Earthly Tranquility who gossiped. Guess what happened? They were all dealt with by the Empress. Auntie, you are really... Noble consort Zhuang was halfway through her words when she saw Empress Dowager Zhuang's cold, knife-like gaze. She quivered. Aunt. Do you have nothing better to do? Empress Dowager Zhuang said with dignity. Noble consort Zhuang was suffocated by her aunt's powerful aura. She didn't dare to look directly into Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes. She hurriedly lowered her head and saluted. Greetings to Aunt. Empress Dowager Zhuang said angrily, I'm very busy. Don't bother me if there's nothing important. Yes. Noble consort Zhuang retreated resentfully. As soon as she left, Eunuch Qin walked in with a cup of tea. Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at the booklet in her hand and asked indifferently, Have you sent him here? Yes. The carriage has arrived at the entrance of Jadewater Alley. Eunuch Qin said with a smile. Empress Dowager Zhuang responded faintly and continued to look at the booklet. Eunuch Qin walked over and put the tea on the table, unable to hide his smile. What are you laughing at? Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at him strangely. Eunuch Qin said, This servant is happy for Empress Dowager. Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted, What is there to be happy about? Two little things who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Their skin is boundless. Gu Jiao wore the little eunuch's clothes and escaped into Rancho Palace. How could Empress Dowager Zhuang not know what was going on? Keep a close eye on the servants' mouths. Empress Dowager Zhuang ordered. Eunuch Qin said, Don't worry, Empress Dowager. This servant has arranged everything properly. Today, Xiao Chuanzi went shopping. Halfway through, the carriage broke down. He met Xiao Xiuzhua by chance and returned to the palace with Xiao Xiuzhua. The little eunuch that the imperial bodyguard saw in Xiao Xiuzhua's carriage was Xiao Chuanzi. Xiao Chuanzi did go out to buy today. However, after this incident, Eunuch Qin didn't wait for him to come back before sending an imperial bodyguard to intercept him. When Gu Jiao left the palace, she still used the identity of Xiao Chuanzi. Inside, there was a problem with the cloth that she bought. Xiao Chuanzi went to change the cloth. At night, the real Xiao Chuanzi would return to the palace with the changed cloth. Eunuch Qin continued, There are also eyewitnesses. Imperial bodyguard Lu of the Imperial Guards and Nurse Zhou of the Cold Palace will see a woman in green with a small basket on her back. They speculate that the other party came from the Cold Palace. Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao didn't ask Empress Dowager Zhuang to do these things. After they were done, they left happily. Empress Dowager Zhuang's face was stiff. She snorted, Humph. Aren't they afraid of being exposed? Do they really think that they did it flawlessly? Eunuch Qin couldn't stop laughing. Obviously, she liked them very much. She appreciated that the two children were newborn calves who were not afraid of tigers. However, she had to pretend to dislike them. Eunuch Qin laughed. Isn't this because they know that Empress Dowager will clean up for them? Empress Dowager trusts them. They also give their backs to Empress Dowager. Humph. She didn't know how many times she had snorted. Trust between people was never expressed through words. It was a tacit understanding through actions. It was a trust in a person's sincerity and ability. It was quite satisfying. Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang returned to buy Shui Alley. Tonight, the owner of the orchard had invited a theatrical troupe to set up a stage in the orchard. The neighbors all went to watch the play. Yao She and the family's children also went. The home was empty. Although they had eaten dinner, after the ruckus in the palace, the two of them were a bit hungry. Let's go out and eat. Xiao Lulang said. In the end, he couldn't bear for her to cook in the middle of the night. Moreover, this place was close to the busy streets. It was very convenient to eat anything. Okay. Gu Jiao agreed. They went to Xuanwu Avenue. The capital was always very lively on summer nights. The shops were lined up in rows and the hawkers' stalls were like a long dragon. In the middle of the street, there would occasionally be carriages and horses slowly passing by. On both sides, there was an endless stream of people. In the past, it had always been Gu Jiao who walked on the outside. She had to protect her husband. Today, she had been placed on the inside by Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang leaned on his walking stick. Compared to last year, his body clearly had a bit more masculine strength. He helped her block the flood of people. However, there was a peddler carrying a load who did not walk on the middle path and insisted on walking on the inside. He almost bumped into Gu Jiao. Xiao Lulang pulled on her arm. His hand did not immediately let go. After a moment of hesitation, he slid down to hold her hand. Don't get lost. Gu Jiao was surprised. She then smiled. Okay. Husband, don't get lost. Xiao Lulang was almost dazzled by her smile. He looked forward and asked, What do you want to eat? Anything is fine. She said, What do you want to eat? He said, Anything is fine for me too. The two of them were not picky eaters. Xiao Lulang looked to the east and said, There's a new noodle restaurant over there. Do you want to try it? Their braised noodles are very delicious. You've eaten it before? Gu Jiao turned her head to look at him and asked. He nodded. I ate it when I was young. At that time, their family had not yet opened such a prosperous area. They had to go to a very remote suburb to eat it. In the past few years, they seem to have made a fortune and opened several branches. As for his previous identity, he would not take the initiative to talk about it. However, if it was brought up, he would not deliberately avoid it. However, he had never admitted who he was. Marquis Xian Ping's illegitimate son, Xiao Lulang. This was the only identity he could reveal to those close to him. There were not many people who knew about this identity. In his family, only Gu Jiao, Madame Yao, and the little monk knew about it. Gu Yen, that little imp, might have guessed something, but he should not have guessed as far as Xiao Hang. As for Gu Jiao, Xiao Lulang did not ask how far she had guessed. And Gu Jiao did not seem to want to get to the bottom of this matter. She respected him and trusted him. It had nothing to do with who he was. Gu Jiao curved her lips. All right, then let's go eat braised noodles. Although this noodle restaurant was newly opened, both the upper and lower floors were full. Oh, it's already so late and there are still so many people eating noodles? Gu Jiao asked strangely. The waiter smiled apologetically. It's a newly opened restaurant. Most of the customers are regular customers. Moreover, our restaurant doesn't only have noodles. Our cold dishes and stews are also the best. It's hot right now, so it's hot to eat inside. How about this little one set up a table in the courtyard for you two to cool down? There were several tables set up in front of the restaurant. At a glance, it looked just like the food stalls in her previous life. Gu Jiao felt a bit closer to this place. Xiao Lulang looked at her and then said to the waiter, All right, you can set it up. 2 guests, this way please. The waiter welcomed the two of them into the noodle restaurant with a smile. They walked through the main hall and arrived at the spacious courtyard. The courtyard was very large and very quiet, but their vision was not obstructed. Sitting here, they could see everything in the restaurant. It was like they could see the world's thousands of sails. The waiter brought over a table and a long bench. The two of them sat on a long bench and ordered a bowl of braised noodles and 2 cold dishes. They did not order the stews because it would be a waste if they didn't finish them. While they were waiting for the braised noodles, the waiter came over with a smile and asked, 2 guests, our restaurant has run out of tables. 2 more guests have arrived. Can they sit at the same table as you? The two of them had no objections. The waiter led the guests over. No one would have expected it to be the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. The two of them were traveling incognito and did not bring any palace maids or eunuchs. They only had a court expert as their driver. The Crown Prince and the Crown Princess clearly did not expect to meet Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao here. Whenever the Crown Prince saw Xiao Lulang, he would think of that thick stack of math problems and his head would instantly hurt. The Crown Prince had never seen Gu Jiao before. He only saw Xiao Lulang sitting together with a woman and was rather surprised. He had heard that Xiao Lulang was married. Was this woman Xiao Liulong's wife or one of those shady women he had outside? The Crown Prince did not care. Women were originally the accessories of men. Whether or not this woman was Xiao Liulong's wife, the Crown Prince would not look her in the eye. The Crown Prince knitted his brows and was a bit unwilling to eat here. After all, no one would be in the mood to eat when facing a teacher like Xiao Lulang. Their minds would be filled with his questions, all right? But the Crown Prince could not chase Xiao Lulang away. That would be too arrogant and despotic. It would not match the reputation he had built up in the past few years. He wanted to leave. The Crown Princess suddenly pulled on his sleeve and said softly, "Your Highness, there is a seat here." The Crown Prince thought, "Don't you recognize who that fellow is? Xiao Lulang. My uncle's illegitimate son, my imperial father's trusted official, my Hanlin Academy teacher." The Crown Princess said warmly, "It seems to be Xiao Xiuzhua. What a coincidence." As she said this, her gaze landed on Xiao Liulong's incomparably handsome face. At this time, the waiter brought 2 bowls of braised noodles over. "Guests, your braised noodles." Xiao Lulang did not even look up. It seemed like the waiter was too loud, so he did not hear the Crown Princess's words. The Crown Princess was slightly embarrassed. The Crown Prince thought that her words were directed at him and sighed helplessly. "Yes, it's him. What a coincidence." The Crown Princess's eyelashes trembled slightly. She said with a smile, "The capital is so big. To be able to meet while eating supper, it must be fate between the Crown Prince and Xiao Xiuzhua." Her voice was not loud, but it was just loud enough for Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao to hear. Both of them ignored her. The Crown Prince said disdainfully, "Who wants to be fated with him?" "I'm hungry," the Crown Princess said. Then sit down." The Crown Prince reluctantly pulled the Crown Princess to sit down across from the two. He said to the waiter, "Bring out all of the delicious dishes here." "Can the Crown Prince finish them all?" Xiao Lulang finally paid attention to him, but his tone was not good. The Crown Prince swept a glance at the 2 bowls of braised noodles in front of the two and thought that this was too shabby. He said generously, "Tonight, it's my treat. Xiao Xiuzhua can eat as much as he wants. No need to be courteous with me. If the salary of Hanlin Academy is not high, Xiao Xiuzhua can come to my food to be an aide in name." Xiao Lulang looked coolly at him. Forming cliques for personal gain is a serious crime. Is the Crown Prince sure you want to do this? It was not rare to have aides and customers in the Fu. The emperor would usually close one eye, but if it was a disciple of the Son of Heaven, it would touch the emperor's bottom line. Xiao Lulang said neutrally, "I am a disciple of the Son of Heaven and should serve His Majesty wholeheartedly. If the Crown Prince wants me to go to your Fu in name, where does that place His Majesty?" The Crown Prince choked and did not make a sound. Just now, he had been so focused on mocking Xiao Lulang that he had forgotten that this guy was a grand scholar on 2 lists, had been summoned by Fu Huang, and had eaten at the Deer Cry banquet. He was a true disciple of the Son of Heaven. Was he trying to steal Fu Huang's man? If this got out, how would other people view him, the Crown Prince? "Cough, cough, cough," the Crown Prince said seriously. "Just now, I was just testing you. Just remember your identity." Soon, the two's cold dishes were served. It was a cold dish of 3 shreds and a dish of braised lamb. Xiao Lulang picked up a piece of the most tender lamb and put it in Gu Jiao's bowl. The Crown Princess looked at Xiao Lulang and then looked at Gu Jiao. This was the first time she had seen the two at such a close distance. Xiao Liulong's appearance constantly overlapped with that youthful face in her impression, but also repeatedly peeled away. That bright and straightforward young man, his eyes were innocent, warm and clear. The Xiao Lulang in front of her, however, had an additional sense of alienation and coldness that kept people at arm's length. His facial features lacked the childishness of the past, and he had a bit more of a man's reserved and heroic spirit. However, when he looked at Gu Jiao, his gaze was different from everyone else's. There was a gentleness that even he did not notice. He had once looked at her like this. It was as if his eyes only contained her. The crown princess secretly tightened her grip on her handkerchief. What am I thinking? Why did I think of him as A Heng? This restaurant's lamb was very much to Gu Jiao's liking. She ate with great relish. The crown prince originally did not plan on paying attention to her, but Xiao Lulang had choked him. If he did not respond, the atmosphere would become awkward. He subconsciously turned his gaze to Gu Jiao's face. If he did not look, he would not know. Once he did, he was given a fright. How could her face? Dear guest, your dishes have arrived. The waiter filled the table with the restaurant's signature dishes. Although there was a dazzling array of dishes, for some reason, he felt that Xiao Liulong's plate of lamb was the most delicious. Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang had more or less finished eating. Just as they were about to leave, Gu Jiao suddenly sniffed, "Waiter, what smells so good?" The waiter smiled and said, "It's our restaurant's osmanthus wine. If dear guest likes it, I will gift you a jar. A new restaurant has opened. Please come back often in the future." "Is this wine?" Gu Jiao looked at the bottle that the waiter handed over and asked. The waiter said, "It's not wine. You won't get drunk. Girls like it the most." Gu Jiao took a sip. In the next second, with a bang, her small head hit the table and she passed out drunk. It was a good thing that Xiao Liulong's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast, as he quickly placed the back of his hand on her forehead. The waiter was embarrassed. "Dear guest is really unable to handle alcohol," the crown prince consort softly said. "We have a carriage, let the coachman send you back." The crown prince secretly curled his lips. Why were they being so good to them? Xiao Lulang expressionlessly said, "No need." The crown prince chuckled. "See, they don't appreciate it." Xiao Lulang ignored the crown prince and used his other hand to gently pat Gu Jiao's small shoulder. He softly called in her ear, "Jiao Jiao, it's time to go back." Gu Jiao's eyes were starry. "It's time to go home," he gently said. Gu Jiao sat up straight. Her phoenix eyes were wide and round and her expression was very serious. "I'm not drunk." He softly coaxed her and his lips slightly hooked. "Jiao Jiao isn't drunk." That clean youthful voice had a trace of a man's magnetism that directly melted people's hearts. Digression. The very, very doting Lulang. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111491418. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com. Chapter 339. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found online will be available here. The crown princess clenched her handkerchief tightly. Xiao Lulang paid the bill and left with Gu Jiao. Don't look at how her expression did not change. As if she was not drunk in the slightest, Xiao Lulang could see that she was really drunk. She just pretended to be very serious. Xiao Lulang held her soft but calloused hand and walked out of the restaurant. The crown princess watched the two go out together, ignoring the gazes of the people around them. She suddenly felt a little upset. Even if reason told her that this was not Aheng and was just an illegitimate child of a lowly status, she still could not help but think, if Aheng was still alive, would he also grow up to be such an enchanting man? It was not that the previous Xiao Hang was not handsome enough, but at that time, Xiao Hang still had a childish air. He was a child's handsome face. Although he could still dazzle time, he would not cause people to have romantic thoughts. Unlike the current Xiao Lulang, who had a unique temperament between a young man and a young man. His appearance, his aura, and even his cold and distant aura that kept people at a distance all made women mesmerized. He seemed to be a little taller than the crown prince. Before Xiao Hang passed away, he did not even reach the crown prince's chin. Lin Lang. The crown prince called her. The crown princess' eyelashes trembled slightly. My handkerchief is dirty. I will go to the carriage to get a new one. As she spoke, she stood up and walked out. She did not get on the carriage. Instead, she followed in the direction that Xiao Lulang and Gu Jiao left. The two turned into a small alley. Gu Jiao did not walk, squatting on the ground and drawing circles. Xiao Lulang looked at her in amusement. Why aren't you walking? Gu Three Sui. I can't walk anymore. Xiao Lulang. Then what do you do? Gu Three Sui. I need a kiss before I can walk. Xiao Lulang squatted down and looked at her deeply. Are you sure? Gu Sansui nodded. Xiao Lulang kissed her forehead. Gu Sizhui stood up, but he still didn't leave. One kiss was not enough. When the crown prince consort arrived at the entrance of the alley, she saw the ambiguous scene between the two of them in the alley. In the pitch-black alley, there were two inseparable figures. Xiao Lulang pressed her against the wall, one hand circled around her back and hugged her slender waist, pulling her into his embrace. His other hand clasped the back of her head and lowered his head to press down on her. Even through the darkness, the crown princess still felt this man's possessiveness and gentleness. There was clearly a strong and domineering aura on his body, but he restrained it carefully. How could he? Lin Lang, Lin Lang, Lin Lang. The crown prince shook the crown princess's shoulder. The crown princess suddenly came back to her senses. She had already returned to the crown prince's side, but her mind was full of the scene of Xiao Lulang lowering his head and kissing Gu Jiao. She couldn't see it clearly because she was too far away, but the ambiguous aura filled her entire chest like a raging flame. She calmed down and said with an embarrassed smile, Your Highness. The crown prince looked at her in puzzlement and asked, The food is cold. Why aren't you eating? I called you for a long time, but you didn't hear me. What were you thinking about? The crown princess didn't know what to say, her mind in a mess. The crown prince furrowed his brows. Was it that Xiao Lulang? You seem to have lost your soul when you saw him. You thought of Aheng, didn't you? You haven't forgotten Aheng. The crown princess lowered her eyes, saying, Please calm down, Your Highness. I wasn't thinking about him just now, but about the girl next to him. That ugly girl with a birthmark on her face? The crown prince was still skeptical. In order to wash away the suspicion that she was thinking about Aheng, the crown princess could only brace herself and shift the topic to Gu Jiao. Does Your Highness know who that girl is? Who? The crown prince casually asked. The crown princess said, She is together with Xiao Xiuzhua. Is the crown prince not curious about who she is? The crown prince said without much concern, It's either his wife or his concubine, or it's just a flower outside. This prince has seen this sort of thing many times, so there's nothing strange about it. What this prince is curious about is, this Xiao Lulang is the new top scholar. Why did he find a girl with such an unbearable appearance? She is the daughter of Ding and Marquis Manor. The crown princess said. The crown prince was startled. The Gu family's young miss? This prince has seen the Gu family's young miss. She didn't look like this. The crown princess warmly said, The Gu family's second young miss that Your Highness saw was a girl from the countryside that was mistakenly picked up. The one just now was the true daughter of the first wife of the Marquis Manor. Oh. The crown prince suddenly realized. This prince remembers now. This prince has indeed heard of such a thing. It was not the Crown Prince's fault for not remembering it. There were many people in the capital. There were large families and large families. There were many more melodramatic things than this. He would just treat it as a topic of conversation after a meal. How could he really remember it? The Crown Prince knit his brows. Then the Crown Princess said, she is Xiao Liulong's wife. The two met in the countryside and got married. It was only after they got married that they found out that they were the wrong daughters. The Crown Prince snorted. It seems that Xiao Liulong's luck is quite good. A poor boy from the countryside casually married a small village girl and actually married the Marquis Manor's daughter. Although she is a bit ugly, her status is not bad. The Crown Princess paused, then said, but this concubine has heard that this young Miss Gu has never returned to the Gu family. Why has she not returned? The Crown Prince asked in confusion. This concubine is not clear. The Crown Princess shook her head. The Crown Prince thought for a bit. Perhaps she is too unpresentable and the Ding and Marquis Manor cannot afford to lose this person. The Crown Princess slightly shook her head. Does the Crown Prince know about the bellows? Halfway through her words, a hearty laugh came from the entrance to the courtyard. Second brother. Old fourth. The Crown Prince's eyes lit up and he quickly waved at him. Why have you also come? Quickly sit, quickly sit. Didn't I hear that their family opened a new store? I happened to pass by and did not think that second brother would also be here. The fourth prince came to the table and cupped his hands in greeting to the Crown Princess. Second sister-in-law. The Crown Princess smiled and nodded. The two brothers naturally had things to say and did not continue the previous topic. The Crown Princess silently drank the osmanthus wine in her cup. On the other side, Xiao Lulang brought a certain person home. This time, the osmanthus wine was too strong. It was not something that the wine that Xiao Lulang brought back from the provincial capital or Gu Jiao's pear blossom wine could compare to. Gu Jiao could not take it the moment she arrived home. She threw herself face down on the soft bed and fell asleep. Gu Jiao slept too deeply. When she woke up, the men in the family had already gone to work or school. Yuya brought in a bowl of hangover soup. Eldest miss, you're awake? Before son-in-law left, he told me to let you drink a bowl of hangover soup first when you wake up. Gu Jiao was fine now, but since it was her husband's good intentions, she still obediently drank it. She went to see Yao Shi. Yao Shi was fine, but the fetal movement was very strange. It's not moving at all. I'm afraid that it's... Yao Shi did not say anything inauspicious. Gu Jiao took out a stethoscope and listened to the little fellow's heartbeat. It's normal. Don't worry. Yao Shi held back for a long time before saying in a wrong tone, she is so lazy. Other than when Marquis Gu came, the little fellow would move a lot and kick around with his little feet. The rest of the time, he would not move at all. If her daughter did not have a way to hear the little fellow's heartbeat, Yao Shi would have thought that something was wrong with the little fellow in her belly. Isn't the first child like this? Gu Jiao asked. Yu and Yen love to cause trouble in my belly. It caused Yao Shi to be unable to sleep all night. At that time, she felt that it was very tiring. This pregnancy was comfortable, but she felt uneasy. Gu Jiao nodded. Oh, then, it's possible that he really is a lazy baby. Yao Shi's belly swelled up. It was like a silent protest. Gu Jiao went to the medical center. To her surprise, she saw Huang Zhong. Huang Zhong had been building a manor with Marquis Gu and had not returned to the capital for a long time. Eldest Mississippi, Huang Zhong respectfully saluted. Is something the matter? Gu Jiao asked. It's like this. The Marquis wanted me to send some banknotes to young Miss. As Huang Zhong spoke, he pulled out a brocade box. This is 1,000 taels. Eldest Miss, please accept it. Oh. Gu Jiao accepted it. Huang Zhong was dumbfounded. That's not it. Eldest Miss, isn't your reaction a bit off? Are you not going to ask why the Marquis suddenly sending you banknotes? The truth was that the old Marquis had somehow found out that the Marquis had cut off the young master's monthly allowance. He was furious and taught the Marquis a lesson. After that, he forced the Marquis to open his little treasury and took out a sum of money to send to the eldest miss. Forget it. The eldest miss' way of doing things was strange. She would even beat her own father. How could she be expected to act like a normal person? Huang Zhong gave up on the treatment. He only needed to clearly explain what needed to be explained. He continued, "This 1,000 taels is for the eldest miss to thank the eldest miss for taking care of the young master. Also, there is 10 taels of monthly allowance for the young master. In the future, the manor will send 10 taels of silver to the young master every month." Gu Jiao nodded, "Got it. I will pass it to Ah Yen." In the evening, Gu Jiao returned home. Gu Yen, who was shoveling chicken poop, received the 10 taels of silver from the Marquis. He put his hands on his waist and laughed 3 times. Little monk. He found little Jing Kong in the vegetable garden in the front yard. He proudly stuffed the shovel and small dustpan into the little Jing Kong's little hands. "Well, from now on, you can shovel chicken poop yourself." Little Jing Kong frowned and looked at him. "Are you slacking off again?" Gu Yen raised his eyebrows and smiled. He bent down and took the 2 silver ingots in front of him, saying proudly, "See? What is this?" Little Jing Kong cast a sidelong glance at him. "Are you stupid? You have to ask me about this." Hiss. Gu Yen was so angry that he took a deep breath. He knelt down on one knee and looked at the little guy. I have money now. I can pay back the money I owe you. I don't have to work part-time to pay my debts anymore." "Really?" Little Jing Kong dragged his tone and looked at him suspiciously. Gu Yen chuckled and said, "Of course it is. This is real money. If you don't believe me, you can ask Jiao Jiao." Generally, a 4-year-old child would not recognize the specific size of silver, but little landlord had been collecting rent for more than half a year. He paid 30 taels of silver a month, so he was very familiar with silver. "This is 10 taels of silver," little Jing Kong said. "Yes, it is 10 taels of silver." Gu Yen nodded. Little Jing Kong said, "Oh, do you know how much you owe me?" This question made Gu Yen speechless. Yes, how much did he owe the little guy? Little Jing Kong put down the small spatula and small dustpan, and took out a small account book from his arms. He flipped through it and said to Gu Yen seriously, "You borrowed a total of 50 taels of silver from me. The interest is 3 cents. That is to say, the monthly interest is 1.5 taels. You have been in debt for 9 months, so the total interest is 13.5 taels." Gu Yen was stunned. But I have been working for so long. How can this be calculated?" Little Jing Kong shook his head helplessly and broke the account book into pieces for him to calculate. He did not use an abacus and directly calculated in his mind, "You have 4 main sources of income: feeding the chickens once a day, 5 copper coins; walking the chickens once a day, 5 copper coins; cleaning the chicken poop once a day, 5 copper coins; praising me once a day, 10 copper coins." Gu Yen was confused. "Why do I praise you so much?" He did not think much of it before, but after listening carefully today, he felt that it was a scam. Little Jing Kong said seriously, "Isn't it because I have too many good points? It is easier for you to earn money. I am thinking for you." Gu Yan's face was full of doubt. "Do I look easy to fool?" Little Jing Kong, "You are indeed easy to fool in terms of knowledge." Little Jing Kong cleared his throat and flipped to a page. He looked at the data in the account book and continued, "But, you have not praised me for 8 months. You have only praised me for 1 month, so the total is 300 copper coins. Cleaning the chicken poop 100 times, 500 copper coins. Walking the chickens 20 times, 100 copper coins. Feeding the chickens 35 times, 175 copper coins. The total is 1 tael of silver and 75 copper coins. Adding the 10 taels of silver you have, it is 11 taels of silver and 75 copper coins." He closed the account book and sighed like a little adult. "All your assets are not even enough to pay me the interest." Gu Yen was stunned. This. Little Jing Kong flipped to another page. "I haven't counted the chickens that you have spoiled, so I will deduct 100 copper coins. For saying that I am not cute, I will deduct 500 copper coins. Gu Yan was furious. Why are you deducting so much? Little Jing Kong said, Little Ba stole chicken food 3 times, so I will deduct 200 copper coins. Gu Yan looked at the stupid little dog. Little Ba lay on the ground and covered its eyes with its paws. I can't see it, I can't see it, I can't see it. Gu Yan was so angry. How dare you steal chicken food? Do you still remember that you are a dog? Gu Yan clenched his fists. How would I know that you did not just casually record it? Little Jing Kong said frankly and confidently. Every time I record the accounts, I ask Jiao Jiao to sign it. Jiao Jiao is the guarantor. If you have any questions, you can ask Jiao Jiao directly. Baby Gu felt wronged. Baby Gu did not say anything. Little Jing Kong kept the account book and bent down to pick up the small spatula and dustpan on the ground. He put them back into Gu Yan's hands and patted Gu Yan's. He wanted to pat Gu Yan's shoulders, but he was too small to do so. He could only pat Gu Yan's thigh. Okay, now you can go scoop chicken poop. Brother Yan, good luck. Gu Yan. Woo, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that cannot be found on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-8264826/111491099. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 340. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. In the middle of June, there was a rainstorm in the capital that lasted for 5 days. Many fields and houses were flooded. The Ministry of Works was busy dredging the sewers in the capital. Even Empress Dowager Zhuang's residence was temporarily suspended. Marquis Gu was called back to take on the task at hand. The Ministry of Revenue was busy helping the people resume farming. Some of the Hanlin officials who knew agriculture were also transferred to the countryside. Xiao Lulang was among the conscripted. The day before departure, he went to Rancho Palace to say goodbye to Empress Dowager Zhuang. In the study, Empress Dowager Zhuang looked at the accounts and snorted, "It's not that far away. It's only a day's drive. Why do you have to say goodbye?" As soon as she finished speaking, Eunuch Qin came in with a bag. "Xiao Xiuzhu, the things for you have been put away." They were all personally selected by the Empress Dowager. This servant was just about to send them to Bisui Alley when you came by yourself. Xiao Lulang looked at the 2 bags full of things and then looked at his grand-aunt. "Oh, what happened to not saying goodbye?" Empress Dowager Zhuang glared at Eunuch Qin. Eunuch Qin touched his nose resentfully. "Oh, this servant remembered that there are still some accounts that I haven't finished reading. This servant will go first." After saying that, he ran away like a wisp of smoke. "When do you leave?" Empress Dowager Zhuang asked. "Tomorrow morning." Xiao Lulang said. Empress Dowager Zhuang asked, "Who else is there besides you?" Xiao Lulang said, "Wang Xiuzhu, Li Xiuzhu, Yang Shesher." Empress Dowager Zhuang said lightly, "Come in." Eunuch Qin stepped in. "Empress Dowager, what are your orders?" Empress Dowager Zhuang said, "Ijia has a few scriptures to copy. Go to Hanlin Academy and let Yang Sheshe copy these scriptures." "No need, Grand-aunt." Xiao Lulang said, "How can you use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken?" "I can handle it." Empress Dowager Zhuang thought that she really couldn't overprotect him. This kind of small fish and shrimps for this boy to practice. Is dinner ready? Empress Dowager Zhuang asked Eunuch Qin. Eunuch Qin hurriedly smiled and said, I'm just waiting for Empress Dowager to summon the meal. Xiao Lulang accompanied Empress Dowager Zhuang to have dinner at Ranshou Palace and then planned to leave. Empress Dowager Zhuang said indifferently, I've been sitting here all day. I'm going out for a walk. Eunuch Qin thought to himself, just say that you want to give it to Lord Xiao. Xiao Liulong's lips curled slightly. All right. The two of them left Ranshou Palace. The torrential rain not only flooded a small part of the capital, it also flooded quite a bit of the imperial palace. Fortunately, Ranshou Palace was the palace with the most real power. All the water had been dredged out, and the roads had been filled up. All the way to the main entrance of the imperial palace was unobstructed. The Pure Flowers Palace was also unobstructed. The setting sun was beautiful today, and the weather was cool and refreshing. Grand Concubine Jing sat on a palanquin with an imperial canopy. She wore a nun's robes and a nun's hat, which didn't fit in with the luxurious palanquin. Grand Concubine Jing had been recuperating in Pure Flowers Palace ever since she was injured. After several days of torrential rain, the imperial physician said that she couldn't always stay in her chambers and should go out for some fresh air. Thus, the emperor had people carry her out in a palanquin. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't sit in her own carriage because she wanted to accompany Xiao Lulang. Now that the two parties met unexpectedly, it was Grand Concubine Jing who was high and mighty. Eunuch Qin was about to scold her for not getting off the palanquin when she saw the Empress Dowager. However, Xiao Lulang was one step ahead of him. He performed the greeting of a monk and said, Shirtai Jing, and the expressions of the servants beside Grand Concubine Jing changed. What nun Jing en? This was Grand Concubine Jing. Even His Majesty addressed her as mother. Grand Concubine Jing's expression didn't change. Xiao Lulang introduced, Grand Concubine Jing has been away from the palace for too long and has become a monk. I'm sure you've forgotten your past. This is the Empress Dowager. At this point, no one could refuse to bow to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Get off the palanquin. Grand Concubine Jing raised her hand and looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang also looked at her. Both of their gazes were incomparably calm. No one could guess what they were thinking. Granny Kai reached out and helped Grand Concubine Jing up. Grand Concubine Jing's body was still in pain, but the injury wasn't in any place. It was awkward and slow to heal. Grand Concubine Jing held Granny Kai's hand and slowly walked to Empress Dowager Zhuang. She made a Buddhist bow. This humble nun. Without waiting for her to finish, Empress Dowager Zhuang left without looking back. Grand Concubine Jing's body froze in the middle of her bow. Everyone in the palace saw her awkward and embarrassed state. Empress Dowager Zhuang's aura was undoubtedly powerful and shocking. She didn't need to look down on anyone on purpose. She naturally had the aura of being number one in the world. Grand Imperial Concubine. A young palace maid came forward to support her. Grand Concubine Jing's eyelashes trembled. I'm fine. Empress Dowager Zhuang accompanied Xiao Lulang all the way to the imperial garden. Xiao Lulang stopped and said to her, Great Aunt, please go back. It's getting late. Amen. Empress Dowager Zhuang faintly responded. She looked into his eyes and warned, Be careful. I understand. Xiao Lulang nodded. He glanced in the direction of Pure Flowers Palace and said, I'll leave Jiao Jiao in your care, Great Aunt. Empress Dowager Zhuang rolled her eyes. I will naturally take care of my Jiao Jiao. Do I need you to remind me? Xiao Lulang chuckled. Then I'll take my leave first. Amen. Empress Dowager Zhuang watched Xiao Lulang disappear at the end of the path before turning around to return to Ranshou Palace. She noticed that Eunuch Qin was lost in thought. She glared at him and said, What are you spacing out for? Let's go. Eunuch Qin sighed ruefully. When Xiao Xiuzhuang smiles, he looks very good. Empress Dowager Zhuang thought, Of course he looks good. How could the young marquis who was crowned at the age of 13 not have some good looks? It's just that this child doesn't like to smile. This didn't seem right either. He used to love to smile. When he was young, the entire Imperial Garden was filled with his chuckles. It was that fire at the Imperial College that burned away his laughter. Was that fire really an accident? If Xiao Hung survived, then who was the charred corpse that died in the fire? When Xiao Lulang woke up the next day, Gu Jiao had already packed his luggage. This wasn't the first time he was going on a long journey. In the past, he was rushing to take the Imperial exams. Now, he was going on a business trip. The mosquito repellent incense is in this bundle. The mosquito repellent, diarrhea medicine, and motion sickness medicine are in this sachet. There are also some fruits and dry rations to eat on the road. Gu Jiao knew that he didn't have much money on him. If he didn't earn money to pay the rent, then it would be used for her household expenses. Gu Jiao put 100 taels of silver in the innermost part of the bundle, as well as a bag of silver and copper coins. Xiao Lulang took the bundle. I'll be back in half a month at the earliest. At the latest, I won't be back later than next month. Take care. Gu Jiao sent him to the carriage. Lu Quan first sent him to the Hanlin Academy. All the Hanlin officials took the carriage to the countryside. Little Jing Kong went to school, so he didn't make it in time to see him off. After Xiao Lulang left, Gu Jiao went to the medical center and stayed there for the whole morning. Then, she changed into men's clothes and put on a mask before going to the Thai and martial arts club. She had been very busy these days and hadn't come for a long time. She had to recover her strength as soon as possible. She didn't want that kamikaze soldier to run away the next time she saw him. She wanted to put him in a sack. Gu Jiao didn't meet any difficult opponents today. After fighting a few rounds, she came out uninterested. She rubbed her wrist and walked back. Because some of the streets in the city were still flooded, she didn't take the same route as before. Instead, she took a big detour. On the way back, she met the beggar who had set up the chessboard last time. The beggar still covered his face with a book, as if he was asleep. In front of him was a different chessboard from last time. Gu Jiao looked at it curiously. This time, the chessboard was obviously more difficult. She didn't solve it as quickly as last time. She began to deduce in her mind. There were more than 10 moves in this chessboard, and each move would produce dozens of chessboards. Ordinary people couldn't deduce with such a huge amount of data in their minds. After about half an hour, Gu Jiao opened her eyes. She picked up a chess piece and put it on the chessboard. Just as she was about to leave, a skinny old hand suddenly grabbed her wrist. It was the old beggar. She was so focused on deducing the chessboard that she didn't notice that he had woken up. The old beggar grabbed her wrist and said, "Hey? You want to leave after playing my game? Don't you see what's written on this sign?" It was a broken wooden sign that Gu Jiao had seen before. It said 10 taels per game. Oh. Gu Jiao stretched out her hand. The old beggar looked at his empty hand and was surprised. "What? Didn't you want to give me money?" Gu Jiao pointed at the wooden sign, 10 taels. The old beggar gasped, "You're the one who gave me 10 taels." No, listening to the voice. This little girl was a girl? Oh, so he wasn't asking for help to solve the chessboard. Gu Jiao misunderstood. She thought about it and said strangely, "But this kind of broken chessboard is worth 10 taels?" The old beggar almost choked to death. He pointed at the chessboard on the ground. You, what did you say? Solve the chessboard? You call this a broken chessboard? Gu Jiao said innocently, 10 taels of silver is the living expenses of a family of 10 in the countryside for 2 years. You're charging so much, so you should at least play something difficult, right? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_826/111491002. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 341. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. The old beggar almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Were all kids nowadays so arrogant? The old beggar rolled up his sleeves. If you have the ability, play a game with me. I'll let you have 9 stones. If you can beat me, forget it, you don't have to beat me. If you tie with me, you win. I'll give you 10 taels of silver. Okay. Gu Jiao agreed without hesitation. The old beggar looked at Gu Jiao suspiciously. You agreed so quickly? Aren't you afraid that I'll renege? Regardless of whether she was confident or not, this child dared to say such arrogant words because she was conceited and proud. But he was an old beggar. Wasn't she afraid that he would renege? I'm not afraid. Gu Jiao shook her head and said. The old beggar looked at her deeply and nodded secretly. Although this child was a little arrogant, her heart was pure and she was willing to believe others. Gu Jiao, you think too much. If you dare to renege, I'll beat you. The old beggar cleaned up the stone chess pieces on the chessboard and put them into 2 broken bowls according to their color. He put a bowl of black stones with ink on it in Gu Jiao's hand. You play black. She played black first. He said that he would let her have 9 stones. Gu Jiao didn't refuse. He wanted to let her have the stones. She didn't force him. That's right. The old beggar looked at Gu Jiao's first chess piece. It was quite normal, with 3 or 4 small pieces. If he chose 3 or 3, he would be able to win immediately. However, he had promised to give her 9 pieces. Next, he would see how she would play. Gu Jiao's first 9 stones were all ordinary. The old beggar thought that she had wasted the 9 stones he gave her. Did she know how to play chess? Was she just a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse when she broke his game? Okay, it's your turn. Gu Jiao said to the old beggar. The old beggar took a white chess piece, which was actually a small stone, and put it on the chessboard. An old man and a young man were squatting by the roadside playing chess. One of them had an open book on his head, while the other was wearing a coquettish mask. The moves on the chessboard were messy and strange. From time to time, people would pass by and stop for a moment out of curiosity, but they couldn't understand what they were doing. Is this how you play chess? A young scholar asked. He knew how to play chess, but he had never seen such a way of playing chess. It was simply too preposterous. They didn't attack where they should attack, and didn't defend where they should defend. He's just an old beggar and a lunatic. Do you really expect him to know how to play chess? That brat's brain must not be damaged to actually play with him. I think these 2 people are either crazy or idiots. What the hell are they playing? Let's go. What's so interesting about 2 idiots playing chess? It was better to go to the Qinghuan Chess Club. It was said that there were several masters there, and there would be 3 games of masters today. Have you heard of Mao Shan Hermit? Why haven't I heard of Mao Shan Hermit? He's a master of our Zhao country. Is he also in the Qinghuan Chess Club? Yes. Then let's go and have a look. The onlookers all dispersed when they heard the name of Mao Shan Hermit. There was only a 3-year-old boy who was eating candied haws. He didn't know how to play chess, and he was just looking for a place to eat candied haws. The old beggar and Gu Jiao were not people who cared about the opinions of others. Whether there were people watching, cheering, or ridiculing, it didn't affect them. The 2 of them concentrated on playing chess. If Mao Shan Hermit came here, he would be able to see what kind of murderous intent and stormy waves were hidden in the seemingly messy chess game. The old beggar didn't pay much attention at first, but after a few steps, he noticed that something was wrong. What a tricky move! Her 9 sons seemed to be scattered in the east and 1 in the west, without any order, but in reality, it was a huge net that covered the sky, tightly blocking every single one of his escape routes. He played the second half of the game seriously, and finally tied with Gu Jiao. The old beggar laughed in surprise. "Little girl, you're the first one who tied with me at such a young age. Where did you learn from?" "No teacher." In her previous life, she watched people play chess in the park, and then she learned it by herself. Occasionally, she would play chess with her godfather. Her godfather was a very busy man, but as a reward for every task she completed, he would spare some time to play with her. The old beggar looked at Gu Jiao seriously to make sure that she wasn't lying. Then he was really surprised. The tie today was mainly because he was careless and underestimated the enemy. He thought that the little girl didn't know how to play chess, so he played carelessly. If he played seriously from the beginning, he could still beat the little girl even if he lost 9 pieces. But the little girl didn't specially find someone to learn chess. In other words, she learned it by herself. Her talent was very scary. The old beggar said again, "Have you played chess with a master?" Gu Jiao thought for a moment. Have you played chess?" Her godfather should be considered a master. Anyway, she didn't win against him. The old beggar was secretly relieved. That was more like it. Otherwise, it would be too scary if only she and he could play at such a high level. However, even with the experience of playing chess with a master, it wasn't easy to figure it out. She was a talented child. The old beggar looked at Gu Jiao with admiration. Just as he was about to ask her name and where she lived, Gu Jiao spoke first. "You said it before. If it's a tie, it's your loss." "Silver." The old beggar's mouth twitched. "Can you not ruin the atmosphere at such a critical moment?" The old beggar took out a few pieces of silver from his wrinkled money bag with a dark face. It added up to about 10 taels, which was all he had. He handed it to Gu Jiao. "For you, for you, for you." Gu Jiao counted and weighed it. She picked out the smallest one and gave it back to him. "I said that I only need 10 taels." She was honest. Gu Jiao got up and left after taking the silver. The old beggar stopped her. "Hey! Wait. You haven't told me your name yet. Are you still coming tomorrow?" Gu Jiao walked away. 10 taels for a game. Gu Jiao came back again. The old beggar was speechless. Gu Jiao went back to the clinic to change her clothes. Little Jing Kong ran into her small courtyard. "Jiao Jiao! Jiao Jiao!" He ran too fast and fell down again. Fortunately, the wrestling monk's reputation was not in vain. He held his head and rolled half of the courtyard to the stairs like a small winter melon. Then he got up as if nothing had happened and went up the stairs valiantly. He was not delicate at all. "Jiao Jiao." He entered Gu Jiao's room with a letter in his hand. Gu Jiao just put away the mask and turned to look at him. "You're out of school so early today? Who sent you here?" "Brother Yen," little Jing Kong said. "He didn't send him for free. He paid for the trip." "That's right." In order to expand his business of paying off his debts, Gu Yen developed a program to send the little guy to the clinic after school. It cost 20 copper coins per trip. "Where is he?" Gu Jiao held the little guy's hand and led him to the wash basin. She fetched some water for him to wipe his sweat. Little Jing Kong obediently handed over his little head and let Jiao Jiao wipe it for him. He met his classmate outside the clinic and is talking to him. "Did you fall again?" Gu Jiao finished wiping his little head and found a lot of grass on his body. "Yes." Little Jing Kong suddenly felt wronged. He pulled up his pants and said with tears in his eyes, "It hurts." Gu Jiao looked at his non-existent wound and washed his face and hands. "Okay, I'll rub it for you." Little Jing Kong squinted his eyes in enjoyment. After rubbing his calf, Gu Jiao looked at the letter in his hand. "What's that in your hand?" "A letter." Little Jing Kong said, "I received a letter from Brother Ming, Ming-er, the son of Prince Yu and his wife, was the little envoy of the Liang kingdom. Before leaving, the two little guys agreed to exchange letters. She didn't expect Ming-er's letter to come so soon. "I want to read it with Jiao Jiao," little Jing Kong said seriously. Gu Jiao smiled and said, "Okay." Little Jing Kong climbed onto Gu Jiao's lap and found a comfortable position to sit down. He leaned his little head on Gu Jiao's arm and handed the letter to her. "Jiao Jiao, read it." Gu Jiao opened the letter. To Jing Kong, I see that Xian is well. I am Brother Ming. Do you remember me? I had a fruitful trip to the Zhao kingdom. I was so happy that I didn't think of home. After returning, you missed you and Brother Yu very much. Are you both well? Little Jing Kong's letter wasn't written entirely in vernacular, but Gu Jiao understood the general meaning. Ming-er and Prince Yu had returned to the Liang kingdom 3 days ago. After that, Ming-er began to fulfill his promise to little Jing Kong. Ming-er used Prince Yu's hunting eagle to send the letter to the Zhao kingdom's royal courier station. This was also why little Jing Kong could receive Ming-er's letter so quickly. The Liang kingdom was very hot. Ming-er said in the letter that he was about to become a steamed bun because he was going to be 10 years old and was no longer a child. It was time for him to learn the etiquette of a prince, so he would be very busy. In the process of reporting to the king of the Liang kingdom, a major event happened. The king of the Liang kingdom was dissatisfied with Prince Yu's decision to exchange the glaze technology to the Zhao kingdom. He almost punished Prince Yu. From this, Gu Jiao could see how much Prince Yu had compromised for Ming-er. However, the letter also said that the king of the Liang kingdom didn't punish Prince Yu because Ming-er offered the long-lost original music score of Master Yu-yin, Reflected Shadow. Master Yu-yin was the best musician in the 6 kingdoms. He not only made the best imitation of the Fuxi zither, but also created the peerless divine songs Graceful Grace and Reflected Shadow that were suitable for both the Fuxi zither and the jade flute. Graceful Grace was the first half of the song, and the music score was in the Liang kingdom's palace. However, the music score of Reflected Shadow was lost. Master Yu-yin himself disappeared from the Liang kingdom 5 years ago. The king of the Liang kingdom was very fond of music and was proficient in it. He recognized at a glance that it was Master Yu-yin's original music score. He was so excited that he couldn't speak for a long time. Because of the music score of Reflected Shadow, the king of the Liang kingdom pardoned Prince Yu's mistake. In the letter, Ming-er said that he didn't expect little Jing Kong to give him such a precious thing. Well, actually, Ming-er chose it randomly. Little Jing Kong gave Ming-er a farewell gift made of gold. Ming-er felt that it was too expensive and couldn't accept it. Thus, he chose a piece of scrap paper that he didn't think was expensive at all. He didn't know if this counted as a child who wasn't greedy. Sometimes, he even had more candy to eat. In the letter, Ming-er expressed his gratitude and told little Jing Kong that he also prepared a gift for him and was on the way. In addition, Ming-er asked little Jing Kong how he got the music score. Did little Jing Kong know Master Yu-yin? Little Jing Kong spread his hands. I don't know him. Those are things that Master didn't want. The corner of Gu Jiao's mouth twitched. Things that he didn't want? Was a white-bearded old monk so rich? In a certain inn in a certain city in a certain country, a young and handsome monk with a tear mole under his right eye was drinking wine and eating meat. He sneezed mercilessly. Achoo! The moonlight was like a hook. In the small study of the Eastern Palace, the crown princess was sitting on a cushion and concentrating on playing chess. She was playing chess by herself. The little palace maid beside her was gently fanning her. Yes, I'm done. She placed the last chess piece and heaved a sigh of relief. She ordered, You don't have to fan me anymore. The weather wasn't so hot after the rainstorm. Yes. The little palace maid closed her fan. The maid came forward and asked, Crown Princess, do you still want to play? Why don't you rest for a while and walk around? You've been playing for a long time. Ah, okay. The Crown Princess also felt that her body was a little stiff and sore. She reached out her hand. The The maid hurried forward to help her up. She said to the little palace maid beside her, "Go get some snacks and make a pot of flower tea." "Yes." The little palace maid accepted the order and left. The crown princess strolled to the bed. A cool night breeze blew over, bringing along the fragrance of the courtyard. It made one feel relaxed and happy. The crown princess stood in front of the bed and stared blankly at the flowers in the garden that had already closed. She didn't take the tea and snacks that the little palace maid offered. The little palace maid looked at the maid awkwardly. The maid took the tray from her and said in a low voice, "I'll do it. You can leave." "Yes." The little palace maid left. The maid put the tray on the table beside her and poured a cup of flower tea for the crown princess. "Crown princess, have some tea." The crown princess sighed. She took the teacup and took a sip. The maid asked, "Crown princess, do you have something on your mind?" The crown princess looked at the tea in the cup. "I wonder if they received His Majesty's letters to the 5 nations?" The maid said, "Crown princess, are you talking about His Majesty telling you to solve the Kuan situation? The Chen nation is the closest to us, so they should have received it. Next are the Ji nation and the Liang nation." "What about the Yen nation?" the crown princess asked. The maid thought for a moment. "The Yen nation isn't the farthest. It's just that there are too many checkpoints. Many places don't allow us to pass through." The Yen nation was the hegemon of the 6 nations and firmly held the position of being the leader. It would not allow anyone to pass through wherever it said. The maid continued, "However, it should be soon." The crown princess's eyes flickered. "I wonder if I can gain old Mr. Meng's favor?" The maid said with a smile, "Definitely. The crown princess is the first person to solve the Kuan situation in the 6 nations. How can old Mr. Meng not be amazed by your talent?" The crown princess muttered, "If only I can become old Mr. Meng's disciple." This way, she would have the backing and background of the Yen nation. Only when a person was deeply hurt would they remember it unforgettable. Even now, when she recalled the experience of going to the Liang nation, she felt as if there was a needle in her heart. She was clearly the most knowledgeable and talented, but she did not have the opportunity to speak. No one paid attention to her, and no one cared about her. She, who shone like a bright pearl in the Zhao nation, was just a grain of rice that fell into the ocean in the Liang nation. They did not care about her extraordinary strength or her gorgeous appearance. They praised those unattractive ladies, saying that they were as beautiful as fairies and had dignified manners. However, they could not even walk as well as her. In order to shine in the Liang nation, she walked 10,000 steps in a day. Her legs were numb from training, and she was the most elegant one when bowing. But who cared? She watched those so-called daughters of the upper nations answer the simplest questions and recite the most meaningless poems. She just sat alone in the corner. Finally, no one could answer. She thought that her chance had come. Unexpectedly, she heard the Liang nation's princess say, "Since that's the case, today will end here. Congratulations to Miss Murong, Miss Lin, and Miss Zhuge for becoming the top 3 in this banquet. I will reward you handsomely." Top 3 places. What a joke. With this kind of standard, they could become the top 3. She, who had real strength, sat on the bench for an entire night. Miss Zhuge was from the Zhao nation. The Zhao nation was also a lower nation. However, because she had a great scholar as a teacher, she was also praised by the Liang nation's princess. Old Master Meng was also from the lower nation. After he became the chess saint of the 6 nations, he was personally invited to the capital by the Yen nation's king. He was given the title of Yen nation's senior doctor and a mansion. If she could become old Master Meng's disciple, then she would no longer be looked down upon. She would have the opportunity to compete fairly with others. She would be able to use her true ability to shake the 6 nations. However, after he made a 10-tail bet with Gu Jiao, the old beggar fell into a deep melancholy. There was no other reason. He was a beggar. Where would he get the money? He had saved up 10 taels with great difficulty. But if he did not have it, then the little girl would not play chess with him. The old beggar was at his wits' end. When he passed by a chess club, he heard the people inside sighing. I didn't expect Mao Shan layperson to lose. That new player is so good. If I had known, I would have bet on him. The old beggar had an idea and pulled him back. Little brother, do you want to earn back the money? Digression, Crown Princess. God is giving me food to eat. Asterisk, asterisk carrot asterisk, asterisk jiao jiao. God is chasing after me to feed me food. Oh, asterisk, asterisk. Oh, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896428286/111490790. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 342. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. At night, little Jing Kong replied to Brother Ming with an emotional letter. Then he hung the letter around little Jing Kong's neck and carried little Jing Kong to the east room. Jiao Jiao, I have an eagle too. Using little Jing Kong to send a letter to Brother Ming, Gu Jiao was amused. She patted his little head and said, Little Jing Kong has never been to Liang State, so he doesn't know the way. Besides, even if he knew the way, wouldn't the letter fly away if he hung it around his neck? Why was this kid so funny? Little Jing Kong was no longer a little eagle chick. He was a real falcon. He didn't understand what his little master wanted him to do, so he opened his eyes wide in confusion. Oh, that's good. Little Jing Kong was a little disappointed. If he used an eagle, it could fly very fast. Brother Ming would receive his letter in 2 days. Can I use the 800-mile express? He really hoped that Brother Ming would receive his letter soon. Gu Jiao looked at him and said, The public's letter can't be used for the 800-mile express. Little Jing Kong tilted his head. But I used it last time. I sent the letter to Master together with brother-in-law. Brother-in-law sent it to me with an express delivery of 800 miles. This little guy was probably fooled by Xiao Lulang. Well, since he was her husband, she wouldn't expose him. Gu Jiao said, Because Brother Ming isn't in Zhao State, the 800-mile express can't reach Liang State. Little Jing Kong lowered his little head. I see. Gu Jiao looked at the little fellow's depressed look and couldn't bear it. She thought for a moment and said, How about this? Let's go to the palace tomorrow to see my grand-aunt and ask her if she has sent any official letters to the Liang Kingdom recently. Official letters are much faster than ordinary letters. If there are, we can bring your letter. Okay. Little Jing Kong was happy again. The next day, after little Jing Kong finished school at the Imperial College, Gu Jiao took him to the Imperial Palace. Gu Xiaoshun and Gu Yen had to learn their skills, so they didn't bring them along. Little Jing Kong's Ming gave him a letter with a red candle stamp on it. She begged brother Xiaoshun to make one for him. Gu Xiaoshun carved his own seal, and then dripped the burning red candle on the seal of the letter. While it was still hot, he stamped the seal on it, and it was done. Not only that, but Gu Xiaoshun also made him a beautiful and practical wooden box to hold the letter. Little Jing Kong took the wooden box and the Falcon Little 9. His little Jiao had not entered the palace before, so he decided to bring little Jiao to see the world. In addition, Jiao Jiao said that little Jiao had not been to the Liang Kingdom and did not know the way. He wondered if he could send little Jiao to the Liang Kingdom so that little Jiao would know the way. He wasn't afraid that little Joe would not be able to fly back. Little Joe was a spirited gerfalcon. It had beautiful and shiny feathers. When it spread its wings, it was full of power to soar in the sky. The palace servants of Rancho Palace were afraid at first, but after observing for a while, they found that it really didn't hurt people. They became bolder and began to feed it and stroke it gently. However, they didn't know if it was an illusion, but why did this eagle look a little like a chicken? Don't all birds hop around on the ground? Why was it swaggering around like that? Recently, the imperial court had sent some official letters to the Liang kingdom. Empress Dowager Zhuang asked people to put little Jing Kong's wooden box in the accompanying letters, indicating that it was to be sent to Prince Yu's mansion. Little Joe played in Rancho Palace for a while, then flapped its wings and flew out. Little Jing Kong ran out to find it. Eunuch Qin hurriedly sent 2 palace masters to follow it. Little Jing Kong ran all the way to the imperial garden. Little Joe landed on the shoulder of a little fatty. The little fatty was none other than little Jing Kong's classmate, Qin Chuyu. Qin Chuyu hadn't gone to school for a few days. He had caught a cold and had been resting in Empress Zhao's cunning palace. He often went to the medical center, and little Jing Kong had taken little Joe there several times. Except for the first time when they almost ate each other, he and little Joe got along quite well. "Brother Chuyu, little Joe came to find you." Little Jing Kong ran over. Qin Chuyu didn't run to him excitedly like before. Qin Chuyu hesitated for a moment and turned around. Little Jing Kong came behind him and looked at him in surprise. "Brother Chuyu, what's wrong with you?" Qin Chuyu lowered his head and tried to control himself not to turn around. He already knew who little Jing Kong was. Although little Jing Kong wasn't a member of the Zhuang family, he called Empress Dowager Zhuang his grand aunt and had a close relationship with Rancho Palace. Although he was only 8 years old, he vaguely understood that Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't like him, his parents, and even his brother and sister-in-law. He didn't have any relationship with Rancho Palace. Brothers were important, but so were his parents. He had his parents first, and then his brothers. He couldn't abandon his parents for someone else. He felt sorry for little Jing Kong. But it was so sad. They were such good brothers. They fought together, skipped class together, collected protection fees together, and ran away together. "Brother Chuyu." Little Jing Kong walked in front of him. "Are you crying?" "I'm not." Qin Chuyu quickly raised his hand to wipe his tears. Little Jing Kong didn't understand why his friend was so sad. He thought for a moment and said seriously, "I heard that you were sick. Are you crying because you haven't recovered?" "Jiao Jiao is a very good doctor. She's in the palace. I can take you there and ask her to take a look at you." "I'm not crying because of this." Qin Chuyu roared in his heart. "Brother Chuyu?" Little Jing Kong tilted his head and looked at him. There was a hint of worry in his eyes. The cute little guy was as innocent as a cub. Qin Chuyu immediately lost his resistance. He lowered his voice and said in a choked voice, "No. I can't go to Rancho Palace. I can't see you either. We are destined to be brothers with a bitter life. In this life, we can only live in each other's memories." Little Jing Kong patted him on the shoulder. "Okay, don't worry. Jiao Jiao's medical skills are really, really good. She can definitely cure you." As he spoke, he held Qin Chuyu's chubby hand. Qin Chuyu wanted to shake his hand off, but for some reason, he felt dizzy and was pulled to Rancho Palace. Qin Chuyu had always been deeply afraid of Rancho Palace. He had never taken the initiative to come here. Except for the necessary greetings during festivals, he would always come here with his father and mother. When he reached the gate of Rancho Palace, he suddenly realized something and turned around to run away. Coincidentally, Gu Jiao Jiao was adjusting the swing in the courtyard in the front hall. She saw the 2 little guys and greeted them. "Chuyu, you're here. Come in and play with Jing Kong." "I don't." Before he could finish his words, he saw the swing that was taller than a tree. His attention was immediately attracted. It was a child's nature to have fun. Moreover, Gu Jiao Jiao was here. It gave him the illusion that he was still in the small courtyard of the medical center. In fact, the courtyard here had been remodeled. It was similar to the small courtyard in Clearwater Alley and the small courtyard in the medical center. He walked in a daze. Not only was there a huge swing in the courtyard, but there was also a novel and unique wooden horse and a slide that reached into the rockery. They were all designed by Gu Jiaojiao. Qin Chuyu was stunned. Jiao, Chuyu is sick. Can you take a look at him? Little Jing Kong came to Gu Jiaojiao and asked cutely. Okay. Gu Jiaojiao waved at Qin Chuyu. Come here. Qin Chuyu walked over in a daze. Gu Jiaojiao touched his forehead and then checked his pulse. There's no problem. You're fine. Little Jing Kong looked at Qin Chuyu and said happily, Did you hear that? Jiaojiao said you're fine. You can rest assured. Don't cry anymore. Go and play. Gu Jiaojiao smiled. It was a child's nature to love to play. No matter how much Qin Chuyu was afraid of Empress Dowager Zhuang in his mind, at this moment, he was just a happy little fat boy accompanied by Gu Jiaojiao and little Jing Kong. The two of them played in the yard until they were covered in sweat. At first, Qin Chuyu was a little restrained. But after playing for a while, he became more excited than little Jing Kong. His laughter and screams filled the yard. Even the trumpet girl couldn't beat him in shouting. Empress Dowager Zhuang, who was reading the memorials in the study, became angry. Little fatty, you're so noisy. Qin Chuyu was having so much fun in Rancho Palace that he forgot about his home and had dinner there. He was so engrossed in playing that when Gu Jiaojiao asked him and little Jing Kong to come in for dinner, he agreed without hesitation. But when he saw Empress Dowager Zhuang sitting at the table with a dignified expression, he was so scared that his legs went soft and he almost fell on the ground. Yes, although he became bolder after going to the Imperial College, he was still a little coward in front of Empress Dowager Zhuang, who was a big evil god. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't look at little fatty. She sat in her chair calmly. Gu Jiaojiao and little Jing Kong were used to her behavior, so they didn't find it scary. But Qin Chuyu was different. His legs trembled. It was even scarier than being kidnapped by human traffickers. Gu Jiaojiao took Qin Chuyu and little Jing Kong to wash their hands. Then, she took the two little guys to the table and sat down. Little Jing Kong still had his own little chair. Qin Chuyu was 8 years old and could reach the table. He sat between Empress Dowager Zhuang and little Jing Kong and didn't even dare to move his chopsticks. Every time people from Qingshui Alley came, the small kitchen would cook according to their tastes. When little Jing Kong was there, the dishes would be cute and childish. Looking at the white and tender buns in front of him, Qin Chuyu's saliva flowed down his mouth. The buns were stuffed with red bean paste. The red bean paste was very crushed and had a dense texture. It seemed that it would melt in the mouth. There was a little bit of cheese in it. It didn't taste like milk, but it smelled like milk. Gu Jiaojiao taught the chef from Rancho Palace to make it. Other palaces couldn't eat it. Qin Chuyu only took one bite and fell in love with it. The buns were just appetizers. There were little koi fish made with oranges, little swallows made with quail eggs, milk soup made with strange pumpkins, and Peppa Pig, which Gu Jiaojiao conquered all the young people in her previous life. Crispy meat patties with plum sauce. Wow! Qin Chuyu was shocked. He loved it. He had never eaten anything so cute. It was so delicious. He was going to cry. Qin Chuyu didn't remember that the Empress Dowager was sitting next to him. He was too busy. Qin Chuyu couldn't stop eating. It had to be said that this little fatty was a little noisy, but the way he ate was very appetizing. Empress Dowager Zhuang glanced at him and didn't say anything. The two kids were full. Qin Chuyu could have 2 more bites, but Gu Jiao was worried that he would eat too much and said that she would cook for him next time. Can I come again next time? He blinked and asked. Of course, he was asking Empress Dowager Zhuang. Little Jing Kong and Gu Jiao couldn't answer for her. They were most afraid of silence. The palace servants all lowered their heads and did not even dare to breathe loudly. The Empress Dowager had a clear boundary with Pure Flower's palace. Would she allow the seventh prince to visit her again and again? The last time the people from Pure Flower's palace came here, they accidentally got into trouble. Everyone looked calm on the surface, but they were all listening carefully. Empress Dowager Zhuang replied indifferently. Little Jing Kong patted his friend's shoulder. That's great. Great Aunt agreed. You can come and play with me often in the future. And Qin Chuyu was so excited that he waved his arm and knocked over a bowl of soup on the table. Empress Dowager Zhuang was in trouble. The soup splashed all over her body and dripped down. The palace servants' expressions changed. Eunuch Qin quickly stepped forward. Empress Dowager. After eating for so long, the soup had already turned cold. It was just that being splashed all over made her feel very dirty and uncomfortable. Eunuch Qin quickly took out a handkerchief to wipe Empress Dowager Zhuang, but he found that it was impossible to finish. This servant will help you change your clothes. Qin Chuyu was so scared that his face turned pale. Empress, Imperial Grandmother. He heard that Imperial Grandmother ate people. Not only did she eat people, but she also killed people. Enough, don't make a fuss. Empress Dowager Zhuang pushed Eunuch Qin's hand away. She didn't let the palace servants help her and calmly stood up. Jia is going to change my clothes. Qin Chuyu was dumbfounded. That's it? Imperial Grandmother didn't get angry? She didn't punish him? As the night deepened, Qin Chuyu finally came out of Ranshou Palace with his personal eunuch. Eunuch Su, who had been waiting nearby for a while, exclaimed in surprise. He walked forward and held Qin Chuyu's small shoulder. My little ancestor, are you all right? Why did you go to Ranshou Palace? Eunuch Su was Empress Zhao's trusted eunuch. Qin Chuyu didn't go to Ranshou Palace secretly. Empress Zhao naturally got the news. However, she got it a little late. Empress Zhao thought he went to the East Palace. Eunuch Su grabbed Qin Chuyu's wrist. The Empress is so worried about you. Come with me to tell the Empress that you are safe. Qin Chuyu was pulled forward by him. He asked confusedly, Mother, why are you worried about me? Eunuch Su sighed. Why else? Seventh Prince, you can go to any palace. Why do you have to go to Ranshou Palace? Don't you know that you can't go to Ranshou Palace? It was no wonder that Empress Zhao had warned Qin Chuyu to stay away from Ranshou Palace. It was because Empress Zhao didn't keep an eye on little Zhao Hang more than 10 years ago, and she accidentally went to the vicinity of Ranshou Palace. As a result, he was poisoned and almost lost his life. Eunuch Su stared at the eunuch behind Qin Chuyu and said, You didn't stop your master from going to Ranshou Palace. I'll punish you later. Qin Chuyu frowned. Don't punish Detsi. I'm the one who wants to go. How dare he stop me? Eunuch Su said, but he should at least send a message to the Empress. Qin Chuyu said seriously, I won't let him do that. If he did, you would take me away and wouldn't let me play at Imperial Grandmother's place. Imperial Grandmother isn't as scary as you make her out to be. What's scary about her? The Emperor's smiling voice came from nearby. The Emperor would be in a good mood every time he saw this little fatty. Your Majesty! Eunuch Su turned and bowed to the Emperor on the sedan chair. He then bowed to Grand Concubine Jing on the other sedan chair behind the Emperor. Grand Concubine. Detsi bowed as well. Qin Chuyu called, Father. The Emperor waved his hand. Get down. Eunuch Wei waved his horsetail whisk and said. The two palanquins slowly descended. Qin Chuyu threw himself at his father. The Emperor was almost knocked over by the little fatty. He smiled and turned his head to indicate to him, Have you paid your respects to Grandmother Jing? Oh. Qin Chuyu left the Emperor's arms and walked to the sedan chair. He bowed to the sedan chair behind it. Greetings, Grandmother Jing. Good boy. Grand Concubine Jing smiled gently and looked at his rosy cheeks with doting eyes. Where did you go today? You seem to be very happy. Qin Chuyu said straightforwardly, I went to Ranshou Palace. I saw Imperial Grandmother. Grand Concubine Jing was stunned. The Emperor's face darkened. What did you say? Where did you go? Qin Chuyu shrunk his neck. Ranshou Palace. His father's eyes suddenly became very scary. Who told you to go to Ranshou Palace? The Emperor asked coldly. I went there myself. Qin Chuyu took 2 steps back. Come to Grandmother Jing. Grand Concubine Jing reached out her hand to Qin Chuyu. Qin Chuyu was scared half to death by his father. He jumped into Grand Concubine Jing's arms as if he had seen his savior. Grand Concubine Jing hugged him gently and said to the Emperor, Your Majesty, don't scare him. He didn't do it on purpose. Qin Chuyu murmured in Grand Concubine Jing's arms. The Emperor frowned. What did you say? Qin Chuyu was finally emboldened in front of his father, perhaps because he had someone to back him up. He mustered up his courage and said, I said that Imperial Grandmother isn't bad at all. Why won't Father let me see her? The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-826/111490746. HTML Genius memorized the website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 343. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. The Emperor was furious. He hated that vicious woman to the core, but everyone around him had been bribed by her. There was no need to mention the little divine doctor and Xiao Lulang since they knew her first. But why didn't she let his son off as well? Children were easy to fool, especially this gluttonous little fatty. Just give him a sweet date and he'll run away. The Emperor didn't think it was difficult to bribe him, nor did he think that he had truly discovered Empress Dowager Zhuang's good points. It was just the Empress Dowager trying to steal people away from him. Qin Chuyu trembled in Concubine Jing's arms. Concubine Jing gently caressed his face. Don't be afraid. Let's go to Grandmother Jing. Qin Chuyu hid in Concubine Jing's arms and refused to come out. The Emperor couldn't really pull Qin Chuyu out of Concubine Jing's arms and teach him a lesson. He suppressed his anger and said, Let's go back to the palace. The group returned to Pure Flower's palace. Qin Chuyu was worried that his father would spank him, so he ran into Concubine Jing's room. The Emperor's mouth twitched as he watched his son run away faster than a rabbit. Concubine Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Little Qi is still young. Don't be too harsh on him. You'll make him sad. The Emperor snorted. It's better to make him sad than to lose his life. Concubine Jing shook her head with a sigh. Your Majesty, don't you think you've misunderstood the Empress Dowager too much? Ranshou Palace isn't a place of tigers and wolves. The Empress Dowager is Little Qi's grandmother. How could she harm Little Qi? The Emperor stood in the corridor and looked at the quiet courtyard with a cold gaze. Imperial Mother has probably forgotten what happened to Xiao Heng. How innocent was the 4-year-old Xiao Heng? Didn't he still suffer at her hands? Concubine Jing said, Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. The Emperor looked at Concubine Jing and said, How could there be so many misunderstandings? Imperial Concubine Mother's heart is too kind. She always repays evil with good, but some people will not be grateful because of this. Instead, they will become even worse. Then you shouldn't blame Little Qi, Grand Concubine Jing said. He's so young and doesn't know anything. The emperor frowned and said, "He is a prince. He was born in such a whirlpool. How can he survive if he doesn't understand?" Old concubine Jing said earnestly, "You have to take it slow. You can't be impatient. Weren't you as innocent as little Qi when you were little Qi's age?" Thinking of the past, a trace of guilt appeared in the emperor's eyes. "It was because I became sensible too late that I couldn't properly protect Mother and Ning En. That was why you suffered so much in the palace." Old concubine Jing shook her head. "Don't say that. We didn't suffer much. The Empress Dowager still gave us a lot of protection." The emperor felt a wave of disgust and anger at the mention of Empress Dowager Zhuang. "She didn't give us protection. At most, it was a deliberate scheme." Old concubine Jing waved her hand. All right. Let's not argue about this. Go and do your work. Little Qi can be taught slowly. There's no rush." At this point, the emperor couldn't continue to hold on to Qin Chuyu. "I'll leave little Qi to you, mother." Old concubine Jing smiled gently. "I know. I'll have someone send him back to the empress later." There were a lot of memorials piled up in the imperial study. The emperor went to read them while old concubine Jing returned to her room. Qin Chuyu hid behind the pavilion of many treasures and poked his round head out to look carefully. Amused, old concubine Jing walked over and sat down on a chair. "Come here. Your imperial father has left. Don't be afraid." Qin Chuyu asked suspiciously, "Has imperial father really left?" Old concubine Jing smiled. "He has left. Grandmother Jing is a monk. I won't lie to you." "Oh." Qin Chuyu remembered that little Jing Kong once said that monks didn't lie. That meant that monks didn't lie. Relieved, Qin Chuyu walked to the chair next to old concubine Jing and sat down. He sighed in relief. "Ah, I was scared to death." Old concubine Jing took out a handkerchief and wiped the sweat off his forehead. "Your imperial father won't eat you." Qin Chuyu curled his lips. "But he'll beat me." Old concubine Jing paused in the middle of wiping his sweat. "Does your imperial father beat you often?" Qin Chuyu thought about it carefully. "A few times, but not often." Old concubine Jing finished wiping his forehead and then his cheeks. "Your imperial father is strict with you because he values you. You're his legitimate son. You're different from the other princes." "I know." Qin Chuyu knew from a young age that he and his brother, the crown prince, were the legitimate sons of the empress. They were nobler than the other princes. Otherwise, how could he be so domineering in the palace? As the saying went, 7, 8, 9, 9, dogs are disliked. Qin Chuyu was at the age where even dogs were disliked. He was rebellious and unreasonable. Recently, even the crown prince didn't want to see him anymore. Old concubine Jing said gently, "Your imperial father is doing this for your own good." Qin Chuyu snorted. "Humph, if he's doing this for my own good, he won't lie to me." Old concubine Jing seemed to be amused by his little appearance. "What lies did your imperial father make up?" Qin Chuyu said angrily, "He said grandmother isn't a good person." In all honesty, the emperor had never said such a thing to him. He just didn't allow Qin Chuyu to go to Ranshou Palace. Qin Chuyu was the one who came to the conclusion that Empress Dowager Zhuang wasn't a good person. Although children were innocent, they were very sensitive about certain things. For example, he could feel that the emperor looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang as if she was a bad person. The fact that the emperor didn't allow him to get close to the Empress Dowager proved this point. In addition, Empress Xiao and the people around her were all secretive about Empress Dowager Zhuang. It wasn't strange that he would come to such a conclusion. Old concubine Jing touched his head. "What does little Qi think? Is grandmother a good person?" "Well..." Qin Chuyu thought about it seriously for a moment and said seriously, "She's not a bad person. I was eating in grandmother's palace today and I spilled a big bowl of soup on her. She didn't punish me or scold me." Old concubine Jing looked at him gently and kindly. "Little Qi is a prince. No one would scold little Qi. Qin Chuyu snorted. She even scolded Imperial Father. I heard it. Really? Old concubine Jing smiled and put down her handkerchief with her eyes down. The emperor went to the imperial study to read the memorials. Halfway through, he put the memorials on the table. Eunuch Wei asked with concern, "What's wrong, Your Majesty? Is it too stuffy in the room?" "No." The emperor pinched his sore eyebrows. Eunuch Wei said, "You're tired. You can read these memorials tomorrow. There's no morning court session tomorrow anyway." The Zhao kingdom didn't have morning court sessions every day. There were a few days off every month. The emperor took a sip of tea and said lightly, "I'm not tired." "Then what's troubling you, Your Majesty?" Eunuch Wei asked. The emperor didn't answer. Instead he said, "Where's Eunuch He? Go and ask him to come here." "Yes, Your Majesty." Eunuch Wei brought Eunuch He to the imperial study under the cover of night. Eunuch He bowed to the emperor. "Greetings, Your Majesty. How's the investigation going?" the emperor asked in a deep voice. He was talking about the attack on old concubine Jing in the imperial garden. Eunuch He said, "I don't have a clue yet. I only found out that the assassin probably snuck into the imperial palace from the cold palace, where the defense is weaker. Also, I think that the assassin probably had an accomplice working with him. The accomplice lured the dragon shadow guards away so that he could sneak up on old concubine Jing. Unfortunately, the dragon shadow guards were men of sacrifice. They only obeyed orders and never communicated with others. It was impossible to get any information from the dragon shadow guards. As such, Eunuch He didn't bother to interrogate the dragon shadow guards. The emperor knew that the dragon shadow guards were special, so he didn't blame Eunuch He for not doing his job well. However, he was curious as to how the dragon shadow guards were lured away. The dragon shadow guards were different from ordinary secret guards. They wouldn't chase after their masters just because of the slightest disturbance. Unless it was old concubine Jing who ordered them to chase after the assassin, but she didn't. The emperor couldn't figure out who had the ability to lure the dragon shadow guards away. Eunuch He searched the entire imperial palace and didn't find anyone's body or a trace of blood. In other words, after the dragon shadow guards were lured away, they either didn't see that person, or they saw him but didn't fight him. It was impossible that they didn't see him. The dragon shadow guards should be able to catch up with whoever they wanted. But why didn't they fight? The dragon shadow guards wouldn't attack weak people. It was probably an order from the late emperor to prevent them from killing civilians by accident. Did that person not know martial arts? But if he didn't know martial arts, how could he have lured the dragon shadow guards away? The emperor had a headache thinking about it. Just as the emperor was thinking about this matter, a little eunuch from the palace of earthly tranquility suddenly came to report, "Your Majesty, not good. Something happened to the seventh prince." The emperor hurriedly left his official business and went to Empress Zhao's palace of earthly tranquility. Empress Zhao sent someone to deliver the news to the emperor. Shi sent someone to call the imperial physician. The imperial physician and the emperor were both in the palace of earthly tranquility. The imperial physician didn't have time to salute the emperor and quickly went to Qin Chuyu's bedchamber with his medicine box. On the wide and soft bed, Qin Chuyu held his little fat belly and rolled around in pain. "Mother, I'm in pain. I'm in so much pain." Empress Zhao's heart ached. She sat by the bed and tried to hold her son in her arms. However, Qin Chuyu was in so much pain that he couldn't stay in Empress Zhao's arms. The imperial physician quickly walked over and put down his medicine box. He knelt by the bed and began to take Qin Chuyu's pulse. Eunuch Su and another strong nanny held him down to prevent him from moving. Empress Zhao was so anxious that her eyes turned red. "Imperial physician, what happened to the seventh prince?" The imperial physician bowed and said, "I can only tell Your Majesty after the examination." "Then quickly check." Empress Zhao said. Although the imperial physician was already checking, he still respectfully replied, "Yes, yes." The emperor walked in with a serious expression. "What happened to little Qi?" Your Majesty. Empress Xiao threw herself into his arms with tears in her eyes. Her hot tears fell onto the back of his hand. Empress Xiao, who had always been the empress and never acted rudely in front of the emperor, was crying. It was also at this moment that the emperor felt that his empress was also an ordinary woman and an ordinary mother. The emperor's heart softened. He patted her shoulder and comforted her. Don't cry. Tell me, what happened? Empress Xiao choked and said, I don't know what happened. Little Qi was fine when he came back. Suddenly, he held his stomach and said that it hurt. The emperor asked, what did he eat for dinner today? He ate at Ranshou Palace. Empress Xiao wiped her tears with a handkerchief and said seriously, Little De. Little De dragged his injured body into the room. Obviously, Eunuch Su had punished him just now. He knelt down and kowtowed to the emperor and Empress Xiao. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Empress Xiao said coldly, let me ask you, did the seventh prince eat anything strange in Ranshou Palace? Strange things? Little De scratched his head. They all seem strange. I have never seen those flatbread and steamed buns. They look like pigs and fish. The emperor understood. Those were the special snacks that little Jing Kong usually ate in Clearwater Alley. Is there anything else? Then there are some dishes. Xiao Detzi reported the dishes on the table to him. There was no problem. They were all dishes that the emperor and Empress Xiao usually ate. Empress Xiao asked, then, did they give the seventh prince anything to eat alone? It was no wonder that Empress Xiao was so suspicious. It was because the tragedy of Xiao Hang was still vivid in her mind. She didn't want her son to be the second person to be killed by the Empress Dowager. No. Little De shook his head. Empress Xiao frowned and said, could it be that they fed him alone but you didn't see it? Have you been guarding the seventh prince all the time? You didn't leave his side at all? Well. Little De lowered his head guiltily and said in fear, I went to the toilet. You. Empress Xiao was so angry that she almost slapped him. On the other side, the imperial doctor finished his diagnosis. He said to the emperor and Empress Xiao, Your Majesty, Your Highness, the seventh prince ate too much and got a stomachache. I will give him some pills to help with digestion. He can't eat like this anymore. It's harmful to his body. Empress Xiao said angrily, Your Majesty, listen. Ranshou Palace is really up to no good. The emperor already knew that Qin Chuyu was taken to Ranshou Palace by little Jing Kong. Gu Jiao was there as well. The emperor didn't think that Gu Jiao would let Qin Chuyu eat uncontrollably. The imperial doctor gave Qin Chuyu some pills to help with digestion. Qin Chuyu finally felt less painful after farting a few times. He heard the argument just now. His father and mother thought that it was his grandmother who fed him like this. Actually, it wasn't. But if he told the truth, he had to be punished. He was in a dilemma. In the past, Qin Chuyu definitely wouldn't tell the truth. He was most afraid of being punished by his father. In order to avoid punishment, he could go against his conscience and lie. But this time, he chose to tell the truth. He gritted his teeth, steeled his heart, and said, I didn't eat too much in Ranshou Palace. I ate again after leaving Ranshou Palace. Gu Jiao told me not to eat anymore in Ranshou Palace. I couldn't resist. What did you eat? The emperor asked. Qin Chuyu didn't dare to look into his father's eyes. He lowered his head and said, I ate a few pieces of osmanthus cake, and drank a bowl of iced sour plum juice. Empress Zhao's eyes turned sharp. Who gave this food to the seventh prince? This empress already warned you not to secretly give the seventh prince food. This empress wants to see who dares to disobey this empress order. Eunuch Su said in a small voice, Your Majesty, Cunning Palace didn't make iced sour plum juice today. Eunuch Wei cleared his throat and said to the emperor, Your Majesty, Pure Flowers Palace made it. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. There are millions of novels to read for free. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826428826/111490685. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 344. The latest chapter isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. The servants of Pure Flower's palace didn't have the guts to give Qin Chuyu random food. Empress Xiao looked at the emperor, who was even more clueless about the situation than she was. It didn't seem like he was the one who gave it to Qin Chuyu. Then there was only one person left. Empress Xiao bit her lip and didn't say anything. She walked over to the bedside and silently hugged her son, who was suffering from abdominal pain. The emperor pinched his sore brows and sighed helplessly. It was already very late by the time the emperor returned to Pure Flower's palace. Qin Chuyu made a ruckus for half the night before he finally fell asleep in Empress Xiao's arms. He was still twitching even after he fell asleep, muttering, "Imperial father, don't punish this son. This son knows his mistake." Empress Xiao's heart ached so much that she shed tears. "Your Majesty, be careful," Eunuch Wei said with a lantern in hand. The emperor paused and walked up the steps with a cloth in his hand. There was a thin figure standing at the end of the corridor. He only recognized it as concubine Jing when he got closer. "It's so late. Imperial Mother, why aren't you resting yet?" Concubine Jing held a string of prayer beads in her hand and couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. "I heard little Qi is sick." The emperor nodded. "Ah, he ate too much at night and got a stomachache. He's fine now." "It's a sin." Concubine Jing held the prayer beads and closed her eyes. "If I knew he ate so much at night, I wouldn't have given him any desserts or sour plum juice." The emperor sighed. "It's not your fault, Imperial Mother. I don't know what he ate at night. This child is greedy and always wants to eat more. That's why he's so fat." Concubine Jing looked at him and said, "Then I'll be more careful in the future." Her eyes were filled with guilt. The emperor was a bit annoyed at first, but now he only felt heartache. He didn't bring her back to let her be bullied. She was his imperial mother and Qin Chuyu was her imperial grandson. What was wrong with her feeding her grandson? She couldn't be doing this on purpose. She just doted on him too much. The emperor said, "Imperial Mother's injuries. You should go back and rest. When little Qi recovers, I'll have him come pay his respects." Grand Concubine Jing nodded. The emperor went to the imperial study to read the memorials for a while before going to rest. Perhaps it was because there were too many things on his mind, but the emperor did not sleep well that night. In a daze, he seemed to feel someone push open the door to his room. He couldn't open his eyes. He tried to summon the palace servants, but he found that he couldn't make a sound. He tried to sit up, but he couldn't exert any strength. It was as if his entire body was frozen. Using all his strength, he could only open his eyes a tiny slit. He saw that person slowly walking towards him. Because he couldn't move, he had the illusion that he was a fish on a chopping board. That person's approach made him uneasy and made him feel danger. When the man got closer, he realized that the man was holding a dagger in his hand. The cold gleam of the dagger stung his eyes. "Who are you?" He desperately wanted to ask, but his throat seemed to be completely numb. His heart was filled with fear. Finally, that person sat down beside his bed and raised the dagger, stabbing it down toward his heart. At that moment, he saw the man's face clearly. "Mother!" The emperor screamed and woke up from his sleep. He was drenched in cold sweat, with large beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. His heartbeat was violent, and his breathing was irregular. His eyes were still filled with the terror from the nightmare. Eunuch Qin got up from the small bed and walked over to the emperor's side. He lifted the bright yellow curtains and asked worriedly, "What's wrong, your majesty?" The emperor's expression frightened him. He hurriedly hung the curtains on a hook and lit up the candlesticks on the candlesticks. He then returned to the bedside and asked, "Are you feeling unwell, your majesty?" The emperor sat up and gasped for breath. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead with his sleeve. "I'm fine. I just had a nightmare." He actually dreamed that concubine Jing had come to kill him. That was too absurd. It was said that one would dream of what they thought of during the day. Could it be that he was dissatisfied with concubine Jing because of the recent events? Or was it because he was suspicious? Then he was too much of a bastard. Everyone in the world could harm him, but concubine Jing wouldn't. Eunuch Qin said earnestly, "Your Majesty has been busy with state affairs recently, and there are so many things going on in the imperial harem. There's no end to state affairs. Your Majesty needs to take care of your body. This servant doesn't know how many more years I can accompany your Majesty, so you must take care of yourself." The emperor said unhappily, "How old are you? Why can't you accompany me for a few more years?" That Qin fellow didn't even say that he couldn't accompany the Empress Dowager for a few more years. The emperor was a sentimental person. Eunuch Wei had followed him when he was at his lowest point, so he would always remember his good deeds. Eunuch Wei smiled. "Yes, your Majesty." However, he thought to himself, "Your Majesty really can't stop talking about the Empress Dowager." The emperor was no longer sleepy after the nightmare. He couldn't be bothered to go to the imperial study, so he had Eunuch Wei bring the memorials to his bedchamber to read. Eunuch Wei brought 2 clever eunuchs with him. They placed the memorials on the desk and lit the lamp for the emperor. The emperor took a bath and changed into a clean set of clothes. He sat behind the desk and began to read the memorials. "You go to sleep," the emperor said to Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei wasn't as old as Eunuch Qin, but he was still a few years older than the emperor. The emperor had listened to his words and was worried that if he continued to waste time, his body would collapse. How could Eunuch Wei not understand the emperor's intentions? He smiled and said, "This servant was just saying that. Your Majesty, don't take it to heart. This servant's body is fine, and I'm not sleepy right now." The emperor knew that if he forced him to sleep, he wouldn't be able to sleep well, so he didn't insist. After the emperor read a few memorials, the fear brought about by the nightmare finally dissipated. However, he still didn't feel sleepy, so he continued to read the memorials. After the storm, the number of patients increased, and the clinic became busy again. Gu Jiao received 2 patients, both on the same street. Gu Jiao came out of the home of the first patient. On her way to the home of the second patient, she passed by a Go Club. Usually, a Go Club was a relatively quiet place, but this Go Club was especially busy today. It was filled with people inside and outside, and the sound of sharp inhales could occasionally be heard. Gu Jiao looked strangely. Because the patient was still waiting, she didn't go in. There was a grand game going on in the Go Club. The reason it was grand was because one of the players was the recently famous Maoshan Jusha. Maoshan Jusha was in his early 40s. He wasn't a native of Jing and had only traveled to Jing last year. Because he was good at Go, he had been invited by many Go clubs, and some wealthy families had even invited him to play. He was very valuable, and all the Go players in Jing were proud to play against him. If they were lucky enough to beat him once or twice, they would be praised for many years. Unfortunately, no one had beaten him yet. The crown princess was very skilled at Go, but the two had never played against each other. Maoshan Jusha only played against one person a day. That person had to spend a lot of money to buy a game or defeat all the Go players in the Go club that day to qualify to play against him. The Go player sitting across from him was the latter. It wasn't appropriate to call him a Go player, but an old beggar. Yet this old beggar in ragged clothes was sitting in front of Maoshan Jusha. It was an unparalleled spectacle. It was unknown whether the spectators were here to watch the game or to watch the spectacle. In short, the Go players' hall was packed to the brim, and there was almost no space to stand. In a side room, a female official dressed as a commoner said to the crown prince consort, "A powerful old beggar has come and is playing chess with Mao Shan lay practitioner. After Mao Shan lay practitioner defeats him, he can come and visit the crown prince consort. No hurry." The crown princess didn't let anyone interrupt their game. Wait until he's finished before calling him over. She had come to find someone to play Go with. She had heard that this Mao Shan Jusher was very skilled at Go. She needed to maintain her standard, so she needed to play against a skilled Go player. But to her surprise, the old beggar won in the end. The female official exclaimed, "It can't be? Mao Shan Jusher lost." Victory and defeat are common in war. The crown princess had strict requirements for herself, but she didn't have such high requirements for others. The female official asked, "Then, does the crown princess still want to play Go with him?" And the crown princess wouldn't dismiss the other party's ability just because he lost once, and she wouldn't immediately think highly of the old beggar just because he won once. There were always people in this world with extraordinary luck. She still believed in fame accumulated over time. Let him come in and play a few games with this consort. Yes. The crown princess played a few games with Mao Shan Jusher. Mao Shan Jusher's Go skills were quite good, and the crown princess did learn something from the game. However, there was still a gap between him and the level of an expert in her mind. Unfortunately, there weren't many people in Zhao country who were more skilled than him. "Thank you for your teachings, sir. I will come again another day." The crown princess politely bid farewell to Mao Shan Jusher and left the Go Club. After sitting in the carriage, the female official lifted the curtain and suddenly exclaimed in shock, "Crown princess, look!" The crown princess looked over and saw an old beggar and a young girl in green with a small basket on her back squatting at the corner of the street. "It's her?" The crown princess' expression stilled. "It's him." The female official thought that the crown princess was speaking of the old beggar and responded, "He was the one who won against Mao Shan Jusher at the Go Club just now." The crown princess didn't speak. She didn't even look at the old beggar. Her gaze was completely attracted by Gu Zhao. The scene she had seen that night in the alley had given her too much of a shock. Now, whenever she saw Gu Zhao, she couldn't help but recall how she had been pressed against the wall by Xiao Lulang. She felt irritated. Gu Zhao was playing Go with the old beggar. She wasn't wearing a mask today, but the old beggar recognized her when she spoke. Today, the old beggar wasn't messing around. He seriously played around with Gu Zhao. Gu Zhao was beaten very miserably. The old beggar roared with laughter. "How is it, little doll? Now you know how good I am." Gu Zhao's face was completely black. She stood up to leave. The old beggar called out, "Hey, you're leaving already? Play another round." Gu Zhao's expression was cold. 10 taels, just one round. The old beggar. She had to patronize the Go Club's business tomorrow? Gu Zhao took the silver and walked back. When she passed by the crown princess carriage, the crown princess lifted the curtain and called out to her, "Dr. Gu, please wait." Gu Zhao looked indifferently at her. Her calm face seemed as though nothing in the world could surprise her. "Is something the matter?" she asked. The crown princess was not too surprised by Gu Zhao's attitude, but she couldn't accept it. After all, she was the crown princess, and she was just a female doctor that didn't even have a title. She suppressed the uneasiness in her heart and calmly said, "If Dr. Gu likes to play Go, you can go to the Go Club. There's no need to associate with beggars on the road. Dr. Gu is the daughter of Marquis Ding and Fu. You are also the wife of top scholar Xiao. You are also Imperial Grandmother's favorite. It's best if you don't lose your status." Gu Zhao asked, "What does it have to do with you?" The female official angrily said, "What are you saying? Our crown princess thinks highly of you." Gu Zhao said, "Do I need her to think highly of me?" The female official choked. "You, Ping Er." The crown princess slightly frowned at the female official. The female official called Ping Er coldly glared at Gu Zhao and unwillingly closed her mouth. The Crown Princess then pretended to say to Gu Jiao, "If Miss Gu doesn't mind, I can introduce Miss Gu to the Go Club. There are many good Go Clubs in the capital. The nearby Qinghuan Go Club is pretty good. Of course, if Miss Gu wants to be closer to the medical center, you can go to Hao Tian Go Club." "No need," Gu Jiao indifferently said and left without any pretense. Ping angrily said, "Crown Princess, she's too much. Even if she's relying on the Empress Dowager's favor, she can't disregard you like this." The Crown Princess did not get angry. She had seen too many arrogant people relying on favor. Being in the limelight for a while was not important. Being in the limelight for a lifetime was skill. Hadn't Gu Jinyu previously been in the limelight? In the end, she had fallen into the dust in less than half a year. Now, when the people of the capital talked about her, how could they still have any of the admiration they had in the past? At most, she had relied on her marriage with royal prince and to barely regain her honor. In any case, Gu Jinyu was gentle, humble, and well-educated. This Miss Gu's temperament was far worse than Gu Jinyu's. So how long could she be arrogant? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_826/111490624. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com. Chapter 345. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. All the novels that could not be found online were available here. Gu Jiao returned to Jade Water Alley. Little Jing Kong had finished school early and was looking around at the entrance. When he saw Gu Jiao, he ran over. "Jiao Jiao." "Yes." Gu Jiao held his chubby little hand and led him inside. However, he turned around and looked behind Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao paused and asked, "Are you waiting for brother-in-law?" Xiao Lulang had gone to the countryside. He said that if he was quick, he would be back by the end of the month. If he was slow, it would be next month. Little Jing Kong widened his eyes and said seriously, I'm not." Gu Jiao smiled. "Soon. Brother-in-law will be back soon." Little Jing Kong sighed like a little adult. "I'm worried that he won't do well. This is his first business trip. I didn't have time to tell him." Gu Jiao laughed. "Were all children so interesting?" Gu Jiao asked in amusement, "What do you want to tell your brother-in-law?" Little Jing Kong said seriously, "I want to tell him to unite with his colleagues and not make his boss angry. Don't think that you're better than others just because you're the top scholar. You have to suffer. It can't be like at home." What he said made sense. Who did he learn that from? Gu Jiao did not know whether to laugh or cry. She pinched his little face. Children were so fun. The two of them went into the house. Gu Yan and Gu Shaoshan went to learn their skills. Yao She was in the yard making Gu Jinyu's wedding dress. Gu Jinyu's wedding was set at the end of the year. The timing was a little rushed. When a normal family got married, half a year would have passed. After that, they would have to prepare for the wedding and inform all the relatives. But Gu Jinyu's situation was special. The emperor had set the wedding date at the end of the year. Such beautiful clothes. Little Jing Kong touched the cloth on Yao She's leg and said, "Who did you make this for?" "I made it for older sister Jin Yu," Yao She said. Little Jing Kong tilted his head and asked, Why did you make such beautiful clothes for her? Not even Jiao Jiao. The child didn't have any ill intentions. She was just curious. Why was it that elder sister Jinyu had one, but Jiao Jiao didn't? Jiao Jiao was the older sister. Shouldn't he cook for the older sister first? These words caused Yao Shi to freeze. That's right, her Jiao Jiao got married in the countryside. She didn't even have a proper wedding dress, nor did she have any dragon, phoenix, incense, or parents who doted on her. She got married alone. To be exact, she was chased out of the house as a little jinx. Both of them had been forced, so they were only husband and wife in name, and had yet to consummate their marriage. Thinking of this, a trace of guilt flashed through Yao Shi's heart. She could not even continue with the wedding dress. Come and eat grapes. Next to the ancient well, Gu Jiao washed a bunch of shiny purple grapes. Little Jing Kong's attention was quickly attracted and he ran over. He squatted down, picked the biggest and brightest grape, and fed it to Gu Jiao. Jiao Jiao, eat. Okay. Gu Jiao ate the grape he fed her. After that, little Jing Kong picked another grape and gave it to Yao Shi. He didn't forget senior servant Fong, Yuya, and the young master next door. Overall, he was a child who could make people go crazy when he made a fuss, but when he was sensible, he could soften people's hearts. However, the old chancellor was not in the mood to eat the grapes little Jing Kong gave him. Recently, he was worried about his storybook. At the beginning of the month, he taught the script for the third book. The plot of the third book was about the hostage Yun Ting overthrowing the imperial power of the enemy dynasty. In order to save her dynasty, the sixth princess did not hesitate to give herself to Yun Ting and become Yun Ting's concubine. When General Fu returned from suppressing the bandits, he found that his sweetheart was taken away by Yun Ting. In a fit of anger, he asked to go north. He made a military pledge in front of the imperial court that he would not return to the court until he rescued the sixth princess. He led 100,000 troops to the Tsongshui River and fought with Yun Ting to the death. When Yun Ting was a hostage in the state of Great Xia, he had received General Fu's favor. General Fu also received help from Yun Ting when he went on an expedition. The two of them should have become good brothers, but they turned against each other for the sake of national enmity and a woman. The third book stopped here. The fourth book was the last book. In this book, General Fu died under Yun Ting's sword, and the 100,000 troops were all annihilated. However, the death of General Fu and the soldiers of the state of Great Xia aroused the hatred in the sixth princess' heart. Although she loved Yun Ting deeply, she finally killed Yun Ting with a knife. She used the dagger that Yun Ting gave her on their wedding night. At the end of the book, there was a heavy downpour. The sixth princess held the blood-stained dagger and walked out of the palace barefoot. She laughed crazily. The rain wet her clothes and tightly clung to her body, outlining her 2-month pregnant belly that Yun Ting did not notice. She raised her head and looked at the heavy rain. Her stomach suddenly hurt. The story came to an abrupt end here. Because there was not much content in this book, the old chancellor handed in the manuscript early. The first 3 books sold so well that as soon as the manuscript was handed in, the study room copied it overnight. This book was elegant and popular, and the audience was very wide. Any one of the 8-legged essays and poems in it was not inferior to the literary talent of the top 3. There were once people speculated whether The Record of Cloud Court was an 8-legged essay written by the new top scholar, because the two people's literary talent and style were similar, but it was not as sharp as the 8-legged essay written by the top scholar Xiao. Of course, there were also people who suspected that The Record of Cloud Court was written by the top scholar Xiao. They went to the Hanlin Academy to inquire about the news, but the result was not. In short, because the audience was too wide and there were too many people who read it, as soon as the ending came out, it immediately caused a bombardment of a wave of book chasers. What about The Record of Cloud Court? Why did Yun Ting die? General Fu, who was brave and good at fighting, also died. General Fu fought for the sixth princess all his life and died without even letting her know his feelings. This was too tragic. And the sixth princess, she was actually pregnant with Yun Ting's flesh and blood? Her stomach hurt a little. Did she manage to keep the baby or not? The public anger was too terrible, and the study room was bombarded one after another. In the end, a young man came out of nowhere and wrote The Epilogue of Cloud Court. There were not many words, but only a few pages, but this tragedy was perfectly reversed. It wrote that all this was a dream of Yun Ting. After waking up, Yun Ting understood that the sixth princess was just an ungrateful and vicious woman who stabbed him at the critical moment. He decisively gave up the opportunity to save the sixth princess when they first met, kicked the sixth princess down, and then went to find General Fu to enjoy the Jianghu with him. F***ck The Life of a Hostage. F***ck The Black-Hearted White Lotus. I want to travel the world with Xiao Fu. Then this epilogue became popular. At first, it was only circulated in a small circle at some poetry and tea parties. Later, the study room that sold The Record of Cloud Court printed it and sold it to a large number of talents and beauties in the capital. Old Chancellor was stupefied. What kind of nonsense was this? The writing was immature, the sentences were illogical, the words were obscure, and the words were incoherent. Was it for people to read? The old Chancellor felt that this epilogue was a complete insult to his work, so he decided to go to the study room and ask them to take down this epilogue. He couldn't let others take advantage of him for nothing. Unexpectedly, the boss of the study room told him, "Well, now you are taking advantage of others." The epilogue sold so well that many people who didn't read the foreword ran to buy The Record of Cloud Court, one after another, wanting to know how dramatic the three people used to be. The sixth princess was originally a pitiful character, but now she was being scolded to the sky by those scholars and beauties in the capital who had read the afterword and the foreword. Even the author was being scolded to the sky. The old Chancellor's mouth kept twitching. Who wrote the epilogue? It was too wicked. In the end, the old Chancellor didn't force the study room to take down the epilogue because the banknotes were really fragrant. The old Chancellor, who made a lot of money, immediately bought a new carriage. The new carriage would be used by Zhao Jiao and the others in the future. Gu Yen had hidden guards, so he didn't have to worry about a coachman. He could use the old carriage himself. He wasn't picky anyway. The money he earned in the beginning was to buy it for his children. At the end of June, there was a small rainstorm, which washed away an official road. The officials of the Ministry of Revenue and the Hanlin Academy, who were planning to return to the capital, were also stranded in the village. Marquis Gu had just finished repairing the capital sewers and was transferred by the Ministry of Works to repair the roads. Recently, old concubine Jing didn't make any moves. It was unknown if she guessed that she was about to be exposed, so she simply stopped. As the saying goes, if you don't seek death, you won't die. How could she not do it? She must be allowed to do it. Jiao Jiao. The old Chancellor, who was cutting vegetables in the kitchen, called Gu Jiao over. Today, senior servant Fong went back to his son's house, so he would be making dinner. Gu Jiao put down the half-chopped firewood in his hand and walked into the kitchen. "Great uncle, you called for me?" Although their relationship had been clarified, the family and neighbors still didn't change their words. The old Chancellor didn't have any objections. It didn't matter whether he was Zhuang Jin's old companion or not. The important thing was that he couldn't let down his children's filial piety. The old Chancellor whispered, "Come with me to the palace later. I'll go see His Majesty, and you go see the Empress Dowager. Let's talk like this. A digression and my claws are almost broken. Do I have a monthly ticket? The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/111490405. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, zhbqg.com Chapter 346. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. The sky darkened earlier in July than in June. When the Emperor came out of the imperial study, there was only a hint of grayish-blue left on the horizon. By the time he returned to Pure Flower's palace, even the last hint of light had disappeared. Night fell, and stars flashed in the firmament. When the Emperor entered Pure Flower's palace, the palace servants all bowed to him. He asked, "Has Imperial Concubine Dowager gone to bed?" A young eunuch replied, "In reply to your Majesty, there is no such thing." The Emperor said to Eunuch Wei, "Zhen will go and see Imperial Concubine Dowager. You go back by yourself. This old servant is not tired." Sigh. Eunuch Wei helplessly replied, "Yes." The Emperor went to Concubine Jing's bedchamber. She was kneeling in front of a Buddhist shrine with prayer beads in one hand and a wooden fish in the other. Her eyes were closed as she devoutly chanted Buddhist scriptures. The Emperor did not disturb her and quietly waited for her to finish knocking on the wooden fish. After Granny Kai helped her up, she seemed to see the shadow on the ground. She turned her head and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "When did His Majesty come? How long have you been here?" The Emperor said, "I've just arrived. After listening to Mother recite Buddhist scriptures for a while, my heart suddenly calmed down a lot." Grand Concubine Jing looked at him and asked, "Is there something bothering you, Your Majesty?" Of course there were. Storms, natural disasters, bandits, and man-made disasters. Rumor had it that the Chen Kingdom's borders were on the verge of making trouble again. There was also no clue as to who was behind the assassination attempt on Grand Concubine Jing. The first few were dealt with by the civil and military officials of Zhao country. Only the last murderer left the Emperor at a loss. "It's nothing. I'm just tired from working so hard on state affairs." The Emperor decided not to let Concubine Jing worry. "Granny Kai, go to my room and bring me the calming incense," Grand Concubine Jing ordered. "Yes." Granny Kai answered and left. The Emperor helped Grand Concubine Jing to the Autumn Splendor Pavilion. The two of them sat down on the chairs. A little palace maid served up desserts and scented tea, which was old Concubine Jing's favorite. The Emperor liked long Jing tea, but strong tea couldn't be drunk at night. "Go get some fruits," Grand Concubine Jing said. "Yes." The little palace maid turned around and brought over a plate of fresh grapes and a few delicious pears. Grand Concubine Jing was about to peel a pear for the Emperor, but just as she picked up the dagger on the table, the teacup in the Emperor's hand fell to the ground with a bang. Grand Concubine Jing was taken aback. "What's wrong, Your Majesty? Did you burn yourself?" "No, I didn't hold it firmly." The Emperor wiped off his cold sweat and said, "What was wrong with him?" Mother Jing was merely peeling a pear for him, but the nightmare of her stabbing him with a knife flashed through his mind. "I've been so tired recently that my brain isn't working properly." Old Concubine Jing put down the dagger and pear and took out a handkerchief to wipe the tea off the Emperor's clothes. The Emperor, however, unconsciously leaned back. Old Concubine Jing's hand froze in midair as she stared at him blankly. The Emperor realized that he had lost his composure and secretly scolded himself for being unfilial. His mother was so concerned about him. How could he disappoint his mother? He took the handkerchief from Concubine Jing and said, "Don't get mother's clothes wet. Zhen will do it myself." Old Concubine Jing smiled. "Okay." Fortunately, the Emperor didn't lose his composure again. The mother and son chatted happily until Eunuch Wei came to report that the old Chancellor was seeking an audience. Only then did the Emperor get up and bid farewell to Old Concubine Jing. Old Concubine Jing said, "I'll have the calming incense delivered to your bedchamber." The Emperor smiled. "Thank you, Mother." The Emperor then went to the imperial study. The old Chancellor bowed respectfully. "This subject greets Your Majesty." The Emperor went around to the desk and sat down. "All right, enough with the empty formalities. What business do you have in the palace at this hour? Your Majesty, Jiao Jiao was attacked by an assassin. What? The emperor stood up abruptly. How did she get attacked? Where is she? Is she injured? The old chancellor sighed inwardly. At least you have a conscience and know how to care about Jiao Jiao. Don't worry, Your Majesty. This happened a few days ago. Her injuries are fine now. The emperor heaved a sigh of relief, but soon frowned again. This? How many times was she attacked? The old chancellor said, 3 times. Actually, it was 2 times. The first time was when she went to the nunnery with concubine Rui Wang and was saved by King Ning. The second time was when she encountered the Dragon Shadow Guards and met Gu Chongqing not long ago. The old chancellor didn't intend to tell the emperor that the other party was the Dragon Shadow Guards. Before Xiao Lulang left, he told him one thing. It turned out that the Dragon Shadow Guards weren't only left to the emperor by the late emperor. Princess Xinyang also had one. As for whether there were others, Xiao Lulang wasn't sure. The old chancellor didn't dare to say that there was absolutely no one. The emperor didn't seem to know that there were other Dragon Shadow Guards in Zhao country, but it was hard to say whether old concubine Jing, this old fox, knew. If she knew and insisted that it wasn't her Dragon Shadow Guards, wouldn't it implicate the innocent? The emperor's expression turned cold. Why didn't you tell me earlier that the little divine doctor had suffered so many assassination attempts? The old chancellor had an expression of being wronged. It's this girl who didn't tell me. If I didn't find a new scar on her hand today, I wouldn't have known that she had encountered so much. Commandant Gu is also muddle-headed, helping her hide this kind of thing from me. It was like what the siblings would do. Both of them were taciturn. The emperor frowned. The old chancellor continued, Your Majesty must have heard about that time when she was saved by King Ning. The emperor knew about this, but he didn't think of Gu Jiao. He thought that the other party was targeting Rui Wang's residence. The old chancellor said, the second time was a few days ago. A servant lied that someone in his family was sick and asked Jiao Jiao to treat them. They were ambushed on the way. Fortunately, Commandant Gu arrived in time. In addition, the Jiao Jiao had powerful hidden weapons in his hands. Only then did he manage to scare the other party. The emperor was slightly surprised. Even Gu Chongqing wasn't a match for the assassins? That's right. There was a very powerful assassin among them. I don't know where he came from. The old chancellor said calmly. As for the third time, it was just now. We met another assassin on the way to the palace. Fortunately, there wasn't that powerful assassin this time. Otherwise, both of our lives would have been over. This was made up purely for the effect of superposition. Why did you enter the palace so late at night? The emperor asked. The old chancellor sighed. I originally dragged her here to report to Your Majesty about the assassination. Who knew that she would be assassinated again? Fortunately, it was more daunting than dangerous. Then where is she? The emperor asked anxiously. She. The old chancellor looked embarrassed and said with a dry smile, She said that Your Majesty hates her now and definitely won't stand up for her. She might as well go to the Empress Dowager. This provocation properly angered the emperor. The emperor slapped the table. Who said that I won't stand up for her? Am I so untrustworthy in her heart? Isn't that because you're blind? Cough cough. Too much, too much. He was a subject. He shouldn't criticize the emperor like this. Ever since he became the emperor's father, he couldn't control his guts anymore. This wasn't good. This wasn't good. The old chancellor straightened his expression and cupped his hands. Your Majesty, this subject boldly guesses that the person who murdered the imperial concubine and the person who murdered Jiao Jiao are the same group. The emperor asked suspiciously, How do you know? The old chancellor boldly looked at the emperor. Your Majesty, if something happened to the imperial concubine, who would be the first person you suspect? Empress Dowager Zhuang. The answer was almost obvious. Last time, The murderer disguised herself as Gu Jiao to assassinate imperial concubine Jing and wanted to frame Empress Dowager Zhuang. Unfortunately, the emperor saw through it. The emperor still had a lingering fear when he recalled it. He clenched his fists. But what does this have to do with Jiao Jiao? If something happened to her, I wouldn't suspect the Empress Dowager. Would the Empress Dowager suspect me? The old chancellor shook his head. That's not it. However, because of Jiao Jiao, the relationship between Your Majesty and the Empress Dowager has eased up. This is an indisputable fact. The emperor ridiculed. Who has eased up with her? The old chancellor automatically ignored the emperor's insincere bravado and said seriously, Your Majesty knows what it is, so I won't say more. Jiao Jiao is the only person who has both Your Majesty's favor and the Empress Dowager's love. If she dies, there will be no possibility for Your Majesty and the Empress Dowager to reconcile. All of this is aimed at driving a wedge between Your Majesty and the Empress Dowager. The emperor didn't say anything. After thinking carefully, it did make some sense. The old chancellor struck while the iron was hot. Lu Lang told me that the imperial concubine was thrown into the supreme liquid pool by the assassin. Your Majesty must be looking for the assassin's movement. I wonder if Your Majesty has any clue. No. The emperor had a big headache when it came to this. The old chancellor looked up at the roof and sighed again. It seems that the assassin realized that he had acted rashly and alerted the enemy. In order to avoid the limelight, he completely hid himself. The other party is very cunning and didn't leave any trace. But Your Majesty, are you really going to wait for death? The imperial concubine and Jiao Jiao's lives will be hanging on the tip of a knife as long as the murderer is not eliminated. These words completely poked the emperor's weak spot. Apart from his own son, weren't the people he cared about the most now imperial concubine Jing and Gu Jiao? He couldn't let anything happen to them. The emperor stared at the old chancellor and asked, Then tell me, what should I do? The old chancellor raised his eyebrows. Lure the snake out of its hole. As long as Your Majesty is willing to cooperate with me, I will definitely have a way to make her reveal her true form. Digression. 4 more votes to break the 1,000 mark. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-826/111490037. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.